If you would call the roll, please.
Certainly. Kara Kasten.
Here.
Krista Espinoza.
Here.
Cheryl Fuller.
Here.
Jenny Hagstrom.
Here.
Terry Pavicic.
Here.
And Don Renner.
Here. Having a quorum, let's please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hank, I'm going to turn it over to you for student recognitions.
And I'm going to invite Courtney up.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I don't know what number board meeting this is that we're recognizing kids, and it's just awesome. Like, we've done this now for so many board meetings in a row and get to recognize how amazing our students are and the amazing things that they do, and to watch them and be able to see them perform at the highest levels is really just super incredible and it just fills my heart. It's why we do this work. And so I'm really honored tonight to talk to you a little bit about our girls and boys track and field teams, who both have had some pretty outstanding accomplishments at the state meet over the past couple of weeks. And so we'll start with our girls track and field team. Actually, both of our head coaches for boys and girls are on vacation, which is well deserved. They have a very short window of time between the end of school and summer camp, and so they're using their time wisely. So just before we get started, I would like to shout out to both of them for all of their work. This is a really incredible two teams, and these young people could not be where they are without our coaches. So thank you to all of our coaching staff, and I'll call up Tim McDonald right now, who's our assistant coach for girls track and field, and he's going to introduce the girls and talk a little bit about their accomplishments today. So, welcome.
We had an outstanding season. There are so many girls that turned in incredible performances. The number of school records that were broken this year was just an impressive list. So we want to recognize our state medalists. So I'll start with the 4x800. So we're recognizing 6 girls. One of the girls couldn't be here because that lineup changes as we go through the levels, depending on the meet. And so I wanted to recognize Pallavi Fisher first. So come on up. You guys can stand.
Yes,
So.
please. Come on up. We'll call up everybody.
Pallavi ran for us in the prelims and allowed the team to qualify for the finals. And so she did an outstanding job for us, and we really appreciate what an outstanding season she had. The finals were led off by Sarah Paul. By Sydney Natuk. Followed by Ava Gilly. Lily Eddington was the anchor of the relay that day. And, while they were second in the state that day to an outstanding prospect team, this was the 4th fastest time ever run in the state of Illinois, and so it says a lot about this group. It was just an outstanding event. People have talked about it as the greatest 4x8 that's ever taken place because Barrington was 1 second behind us, and so it was really an outstanding race to see. So you guys can take a seat, and I'll recognize the individual medalists as well. We had a 9th place finish in the 3,200 meter run by Audrey Kasten. So come on up. Running the 2 mile at the state track meet is a very difficult thing because they managed to put the fast heat at basically the hottest part of the day, and so it's a tough race, and she did an outstanding job the whole time, the last stretch of the season there as she ran it. We had Ava Gilly come back in the 800, finishing 9th place in the 800 meter run. And lastly, we had a 7th place finish by Lily Eddington in the 1600 meter. These events combined, it was a 19th place finish for the team. Just a fantastic season for us, and we're really proud of all the achievements by all the girls. We had a number of girls down, the largest group we've ever had, and I think in the end we figured out there were 11 events that finished in the top 14 in the state. So it was just a fantastic group of girls, and we look forward to next season as a lot of these people are back with us. So thank you very much.
Before you sit down, Coach, I have a couple of proclamations from our villages celebrating our students' accomplishments. So the first one is from the village of Downers Grove, Mayor Barnett, who recognizes the 4x800 meter relay team, recognizes all of their hard work and the work of the coaches, and in the end proclaims Thursday, June 6th is Downers Grove North High School 4x800 meter relay team day. The Village of Woodridge, in honor of the second place finish, also recognizes the team and proclaims today, Monday, June 3rd, as Downers Grove North Girls Track and Field Team Day.
Thank you to our girls track and field team, and thank you, Tim, for being here tonight. I'm just continually impressed by this young group of women. I get up and it's like I can't even run a quarter of a mile, and these guys are like zooming, and I watch them in cross country and track and field, and I see them outside at practice every day, and it's really just incredible. So definitely something to be recognized. So thank you guys for being here tonight. Our next recognition, there we go, thank you, is our boys track and field team, who also had a really great state meet, one last weekend. All my weekends are getting mixed up here. So again, Mr. Edelman, our head coach, couldn't be here this evening, but representing our boys track and field team is our assistant coach, Eric Buhat. So I'll call Eric up to introduce that guy.
So I think that sometimes track and field kind of gets construed as this very individual type of sport. You know, there's 18 different events, and at a lot of points in time we're running individual on the track. But when you kind of strip the layers down a little bit, it becomes very much a team sport, and I think that was kind of the theme of this year, and I think that it was kind of the theme of the state meet as a whole. And, you know, we had two state champion events, the 4x8 and the mile, along with Ryan and Vince as individuals, and seeing the team, you know, whether they were on the medal stand or not, celebrate their accomplishments as if it was their own. I think we got a lot of that on video and posted it out to social media as well with Phil. Watching people celebrate those awards and accomplishments as if it's their own, I think was kind of the it was really kind of the secret behind a lot of our success this year. Makes it a lot easier when you're out there on the track to do that when you know you got a team and a support behind you. So we're going to start with our 4x8 here, calling the boys up. And I'll just one by one, I'll call you up. Will Surratt, Grant Schroeder, Phil Supiel, and Ryan Eddington, and Isaac, get on up here too. Moss. All five of these gentlemen were in one way, one shape or form, were a part of our 4x8 state champion. Isaac here was a part of it throughout the course of the season, and obviously played a big role here and in prelims. At finals, we had Will to Soup here, to Grant, to Ryan, and watching Will as a sophomore, you know, Will Surratt here get that out, like, you know, to the maturity that you showed, towing the line, like you're the one that has to, you're waiting there for the start of the meet, you're waiting, you're towing the line. In a lot of ways, it's kind of the highest pressure, you know, to getting up there, and you handled that like like a senior would. It was really awesome to watch. Supiel, same thing, taking care of your business. Soup is just matter of fact all the time, cold-blooded out there. Grant, you got out hot in that thing. I was a little bit worried, and he held on. And I don't know if I'd ever seen someone waiting for the baton, as the anchor in the lead of a 4x8. Cool as can be, Our senior leader, Ryan Eddington there, closed it down, got the baton in first, finished in first. That was awesome. As far as our individual events here, Phil Supiel, a individual state champion, 2-time state champion as a sophomore. That's kind of rarefied air there. We knew, yeah, sure. Phil, he's not fast for a distance guy. He is just fast, and we knew that was the case. And we knew that if he was in it, that last lap, particularly that last 300, that he was going to be in the mix, and he was more than in the mix. He won the whole thing in that event. So, more work to do though, right? Ryan Eddington, kind of one of our senior leaders here. It's a tough double, 4x8, 800. It's one of the toughest doubles out there. And to come back, running all those events over the course of 2 days, and to get, third in the 800 coming off the 4x8, super impressive, third place there, Ryan. And Vince, who isn't here tonight, Vince got fourth in the long jump. Vince actually pulled his hamstring on the third jump. In the long jump, he was seated first going in the long. He was seated second in the triple jump. And to Vince's credit, obviously that hurt, that he wasn't able to kind of go to finals and jump and triple jump. He was also on a 4x1 that had aspirations to maybe get to day 2. But Vince, when that happened, he was there for the team. He was there for the squad. And on day 2, a day that he hoped to be competing in finals, he was there supporting the group. And that's just the kind of guy that he is. He's a competitor. Everyone knows that. But sometimes what you don't see is the true character of these guys and how much care they have for one another. And he was one of those guys sharing in your success as if it was his own. And I think that's indicative of how this team operated all year long. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, Eric, you need to stay up here. But one of the things really quickly that I think, Eric and I were talking about it, these guys, the boys team, and I wasn't in Charleston for the girls meet, but for the boys meet, you think the cicadas are bad here? It was unbelievable in Charleston last weekend when they ran. And it was so crazy. And just they were batting them out of the way as they were running. They were just everywhere. And so I just want to give all of these guys credit because it's distracting. Like, you think it's distracting here. Oh, when you're running in a state meet to that level and figuring out how to navigate through that, it's definitely something that to be commended. So congratulations to all of you. And it was really exciting to see all of those races. So thank you. That's very good.
We also have some recognitions from the villages for the boys. The first one is from Mayor Barnett in the village of Downers Grove and recognizes 3,200 meter relay team for their accomplishments in becoming state champs, and names Tuesday, June 4th, as Downers Grove North High School 3,200 meter relay team day. Villager Woodridge joins in with the 3,200 meter relay team with Mayor Cunningham and recognizes Monday, June 3rd today as Downers Grove North Boys Track and Field Team Day.
Thanks.
And then Phil Supiel is recognized for state championship in the 1,600 meter run by Mayor Barnett in Village of Downers Grove, and proclaims Wednesday, June 5th is Phil Supiel Day in the Village of Downers Grove. Mayor Cunningham and the Village of Woodridge recognizes today also is Phil Supiel Day.
Yes. Yes. So if I could, we're going to take some really quick pictures. We can't let you get out of here without a picture. So let's take the girls first. We'll come right up here, board members, and we'll all get in. Parents, if you'd like to take a picture, feel free to come on up.
You're not going to be like in the front.
I know, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, excuse me. I don't want my nose.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go to the front. We got items fast.
And we all just hold.
Oh my gosh, okay. He's gonna run out of steam.
I'm good. I'm good.
Fresh back.
All right, we do have a meeting, and you're welcome to stick around if you'd like to, but you're also welcome to go.
I wasn't about to have my nose.
That one person in front of me.
Or else they get the background of a picture and
They're
you.
cleaning out the closet. Awful photos they handed back to.
Seem like,
Well,
Yeah, well, there goes the crowd.
you know, we know how to clear a room fast.
Yeah. Well, that was the fun part.
Talk about a meeting and y'all leave.
all right. Item number 4, we have no visitors, so I'm going to move on to item number 5 and turn it over to Hank for workshop issues.
All right, we have a few topics to discuss tonight. The first one is counseling and student support services. I'm going to turn it over to Scott to drive this one.
You're my Vanna?
Oh, look at
This
that,
is
right,
exciting.
Scott?
I'm going to mess this up on you.
No.
Turn it over to Aaron and Sarah. But before we do that, I want to thank them for their leadership and guiding year after year our college and student support services. It's a big task, and they do a great job with it. So I appreciate all their work, and it's really their work that they're really going to talk about here today. So I'm really just clicking. And I'm probably going to mess it up on you guys.
I'll be like, ding.
Figure it out.
So,
Look at that. All right, I'm
Yay,
out of here.
okay.
I'll see you guys.
all right. Well, so Sarah and I are both really happy to be here tonight to share some of the services and also the celebrations over the last year around our Counseling and Student Support Services Department. Specifically tonight, we're going to talk about global supports, universal supports that are available to all students, but I will start the presentation by giving you a little bit of context on how that fits into the larger system. Ding. So again, tonight we're going to talk about Tier 1. We're going to talk about those global interventions and supports that are available to all students, but we did think it was important to highlight that those fit within a system that we have at the school. MTSS is the acronym. We love acronyms in education. Multi-tiered systems of support. And so when and if the global interventions, what we have available for students isn't enough for them, or it emerges that they need a little bit more attention and love in a certain area, we have other tiers of support that we we move into. And some of those examples are on the slide for you in terms of like a transfer student group is one thing that's just a little bit of extra support in a specific area. And then tier 3 really signifies those individual plans, those IEP and special education plans. But we're talking about tier 1 tonight, so things that all students are able to access. So we wanted to start with how students access social emotional supports, and this is, I guess, represents both North and South. If there's any differences, we'll chime in and make those clear. But each building has an on-call system, and Sarah's going to go into that a little bit more depth. But what that is at any given time, if a student comes down to the CSSS office or we get word that someone is in crisis, we have a system to respond to that. There's always a designated person who's available for on-call. Occasionally, that won't be a member of a student's alpha team. The members of their alpha team may be in a meeting, but it does assure that we're able to get there quickly, get some assessment done, and get some interventions for that student. Also, students and practitioners can generate appointments. At both buildings, we use a QR code system for students. We have found, actually post-pandemic, that has been a really good system. It brought the QR code back alive, right? And it also supports good executive functioning skills. As they leave us, they're going to need to know how to take initiative and make appointments with professors or make appointments with their boss. And so we find that students really do utilize that. We put posters up around the building with those QR codes, and they do seem to use that system. So we're going to keep it as far as we're looking forward. Practitioners can always generate appointments. That would be if a counselor or social worker sends a pass for a student. Occasionally, that's also like set up check-ins that we put into place with students, so we can request them. That's also where our course selection appointments come, where we're picking classes and things. We would consider those practitioner-generated appointments because we're calling you down to talk to you about something. Both schools also have a system of a referral from staff members. We have a Google form, use a Google form as well, that we send out at the beginning of the year so that if a teacher is noticing that the interventions at the classroom level are not yielding the results we want, or they think that something else needs a little bit of attention outside of that classroom environment, or they're able to get to know, dig into really what's going on, they can refer that student for a check-in from the Alpha team. Occasionally that is just a discussion about that student's like what's going on with that student at the Alpha team, but most often it does include a check-in as well, and then a loop back to that teacher letting them know that we did make contact with that student. And then students are always welcome to drop in. Again, they may be able to see the person they're looking for, but they may not, but we certainly receive them if they drop in. We see more student drop-ins before and after school. We also see them during the resource period at times, and sometimes they're able to get right in and see somebody. Sometimes it's a quick question and our support staff can help. So students are welcome in the office. There's a lot of traffic. If you were to come in on any given day, it's a well-energized space. Kids are popping in. Same with our college and career centers. And so they are very student-friendly spaces, and they know they can take the initiative to come in. Can you get it one more time? There we go. I don't know why that's there. Thank you. So these actually aren't, I would say, academic services offered exclusively from CSSS, but they are academic services offered in the building that we're finding that our Tier 1 involvement is getting students hooked up into these systems and remembering that they're there. Everything that you see on that slide is messaged out in some way, but occasionally the teenage brain doesn't read all the emails we send them, or they block out certain things they see on TVs. And so what we're finding is when a student is coming down with academic struggles, or we get a referral from a teacher saying, hey, I think they're starting to struggle in this area, can you check in? A lot of the time, the first thing we do is get them hooked up to supports that already exist in the building. One of the things this year that was really helpful around teacher office hours was that the staff kind of banded together and made a teacher office hour hub where a practitioner could log into this Google file, and I could look up and say, Sarah's struggling in 2 classes. So I'm going to look up Dr. Ludwig's office hours and Dr. Thiele's office hours, and we're going to make a plan for you. Those office hours were available on the syllabus and in the Google Classroom anyway, but they needed a little bit of extra help to kind of get their little plan set up. So that was really, really helpful. The students also, we message out that they are able to use access periods for academic support, but again, it's one of those things we're finding that we're going to remind students for. They need a little bit, maybe a little bit of a little love around making the right choice for access student choice. It's like, I know you want to go play basketball, but here are some courses that you probably should use this time. Why don't we try it this way? And just reminding them that they can request a pass with a teacher as well. And then peer tutoring in our department resource centers, we are finding that we are able to set up a more consistent visit to those spaces and with those helpers if if they have an introduction, if a trusted adult is part of the way that they get introduced to that teacher in the resource center, because a teacher in the resource center may not be someone that student has interacted with before, but if your counselor or your social worker can take you down and do that introduction, then that oddness of being like walking in and not knowing who you're going to talk to, we kind of eliminate that. And so that we did want to include those, because that is really some of the coaching that's occurring in CSSS, is teaching students and helping support them navigate the supports that are at their disposal. And again, when we look at post-secondary success, we want them to feel literate in the systems where they are and where they're working. And so we find that to be a really fruitful thing for the department. And then specifically to post-secondary planning that we have available, the first thing, and we're really proud of the work that our counseling teams have done around their post-secondary curriculum, that is now given in our access courses. It is a grade level specific curriculum that is focused on post-secondary endeavors. It is equal parts career, college exploration, and then also built in are like the tasks and the timelines at which you need to get things done. This last year, our teams have really jumped into planning to use school links. So we are actually sunsetting Naviance and working with school links. Other school districts in the area have had great success with it. I have found it when they first kind of were coming around and showing us the product, it's very user-friendly, it's very family-friendly. I also feel like it bolsters the career exploration a bit more than Naviance does. And so we're grateful as we explore that and learn more about that, and how we can also help our Discover You and Focus curriculum kind of beef up the career as well. It's very college-based, which meets the needs of a lot of our students, but we want to equally represent the needs of careers as well. Also, we have course selection meetings, and so in the use of school links now, we've talked a little bit on, we're feeling like those course selection meetings may need to be a little bit longer if we're going to utilize this really robust tool and start to embed discussions around the 4-year plan. School links has a very usable 4-year plan. Our course selection meetings now are roughly 7 minutes long with students, and we're feeling like they need to be a bit longer. There's always follow-ups after those meetings, but we're feeling that that initial meeting should be a little bit longer so we can embed that conversation around that 4-year plan and bring it up every year. And then we have our college and career counselors. So we do have counseling staff that's designated specifically for that post-secondary journey. And they work to, again, keep the center open to students. We have the pictures on there. It's very decorated with all the different paths you can go. It's a high trafficked area for students. We work with Ryan Doherty, bring in career speakers, college visits. We're continuing to explore more, bring in more there, how we can make it accessible during resource, how we can open up the doors at North. Those doors are open right up to the Commons. It's a beautiful thing. And so we're able to provide just a hub for them to come in and look at those different things. We're also talking about exploring how we can entice students who maybe aren't coming in. There's some students who I feel like come in and sign up for almost every visit that they can, and there's others where I'm like, what aren't we messaging in a way that's hitting with you that we can bring you in? And so our college and career counselors are a very active part of that conversation, and we feel like with all those powers combined, we can continue to do good things in that area.
Thank you, Erin.
You guys are throwing me on this double transition stuff.
Sorry. There you go,
I
Scott.
didn't
You
know
got
if there
it.
was another slide.
Any conversation we have about post-secondary planning, we're always talking about the PACE framework. The PACE framework is something that I know everyone sitting in this room has probably heard a lot about as the conversations around career pathways really started to heat up, I would say, in the last 10 years. It coalesced into the state of Illinois mandating that every school implement the PACE framework to help make sure that students are getting what they need to prepare for life beyond high school. And I'm happy to say that this was probably the easiest mandate we've ever had to implement in District 99 because we have been focusing on the PACE framework for so long. So nevertheless, it was a great exercise and validation for our teams to come together over the last year to just look at what those markers are and make sure that we are aligning everything we do within Discover You and within Focus and within our department programming to make sure it aligns. So just some reminders here. The PACE framework asks us specifically to look at post-secondary education, exploration, how to prepare and select what that plan will look like, how to prepare for career and explore different options. Also be more financially literate as you're navigating that landscape. And it really gives us ways to think about supporting students in a variety of different realms, and then also helps lead us to what knowledge students should really leave with at the end of each grade level. And I'm happy to report that I think, Erin and I are proud of the teams, and we feel really good about the ways in which we implement the PACE framework. There's always room for improvement, and this is just one of those topics that will continue to change because this field is forever changing. And we are really looking forward to ways that we believe School Links can make the framework come to life for students and their families specifically, and be a little bit more transparent as they go through that 4-year plan and decide where life will take them. I like to say, I feel like sometimes this world falls into the dinner conversation, the nothing answer, where you say, what'd you learn today? And you get, nothing, even though they probably had a great access presentation that has all sorts of really exciting post-secondary planning we're excited about. Sometimes the students don't go home and share that, and we know that. So we're looking for ways to just make this all more visible for students and for our community. Erin talked a lot about how our students are able to access anybody in CSSS when they need somebody and they're in crisis. And we're incredibly proud of that. But I think one of the things that I also wanted to highlight here is we realize that it's really important that we give students those tools preventatively so they're ready for crisis. So they're not just getting to crisis and not knowing what to do. And we do this a variety of ways. We do this through our access presentations. We do this through things like Mad Dash. We have health presentations that there's places where CSSS department members really integrate with that curriculum and come in and meet with students so that as they spend time with us, they come away with knowing what resources are available both in building, but also what they might need to do after hours through Safe to Help, and what also community resources are available in the larger community. So when crisis hits, when they're concerned about somebody themselves or someone they care about, they know exactly what to do. We also have calming and quiet spaces in each building, and those pictures are of those spaces that the renovations gave us, which we're really proud of and enjoying. And finally, we thought it was important to share a cornerstone of our programming, which is Alyssa's mission at Downers Grove North and Erica's Lighthouse at Downers Grove South. Both programs function very similarly. They are targeted at our 9th grade students, really to make sure that every 9th grader is literate in depression awareness and knows the signs of suicide and knows where and how to get help should they need it. We really focus on leaving students with what we call ACT. Acknowledge how you're feeling or how somebody else is feeling. Make sure you show care to others that are struggling, and tell a trusted adult. And this not only helps us make sure that we are connecting with students who need our support in the moment, but it also is a great screener for us because students in grade 9, we want to make sure that we're connecting them as fast as possible if they need some of those more intensive tier 2 supports that we won't talk to you about tonight, but we have, and we want to make sure that the right students are getting access to those supports. So Erica's Lighthouse and Alyssa's mission really works in 2 different ways in order to help us find our students early who need additional assistance. And we just want to thank you. We are both incredibly aware of how fortunate we are to work in District 99 and to have the board's support for so long in the world of mental health and wellness. And we just appreciate the time, and we look forward to talking to you again about anything you might be interested in learning more about from the department.
I have a question. So I think I asked this about all of the great things all the time that staff comes in and talk to us about. How are students made aware of things like this? I know there is a lot of great programming and different things out there, and I always say then we have a lot of noise right around. So we got so much going on. So making sure things like this are on the forefront, that students understand how to get the help is, I always want to know what methods are we doing to make sure it's available to them as far as announcements or
Sure, it's a great question, and it's something that we think about all the time, and we are always looking for feedback to continue to improve upon. I mean, it is as simple as there's QR codes in the bathroom stalls.
Perfect.
And it is as profound as I think, going into classrooms and really spending extended amounts of time with practitioners. So it is really across the board. Access gave us a great opportunity to make this programming come to life in more meaningful, ongoing ways, where before we would, maybe push into an English class here or a PE class there, but Access gives us a chance to do this more holistically across the year. So really a variety of ways, but if you ever have any suggestions for us, please let us know, because that is most important, is making sure that students are coming in and accessing all of the services that we do provide.
Absolutely. I don't have any suggestions. I was just, I'm just wondering how you
Absolutely.
make sure these great things that you're doing, that it's in a bullhorn where people are able to hear it and know they have help and support.
And along with the access, I mean, they have to meet with their counselor to register for classes. And so you can't really hide from us in the nicest way possible.
Right.
But the access classes get us in front of kids in a whole group setting. You learn who that person is, but then those one-on-one conversations built into the course selection are really important, because that's when you learn, what their path is, who they are as a human, where they want to go, and we can make sure we hook them up with the right experiences when they're with us.
Okay, thank you.
Sherelle, one of the things too, Arwen and I consistently send home a lot of information in our Friday messages that go out weekly. And one of the things, we highlight various resources at certain parts during the school year. So that's just another way that we let the parents know too, and communicate with families about the things that are going on in all of CSSS, but in some specific places as well, letting them know about Alyssa's mission, letting them know about the services that we provide. So we have a lot of that in our parent newsletters too that go home.
Do you access the counselors at the sender districts so that, you can kind of keep an eye out for Joe,
Part of the 8th grade transition story is that we have meetings in the spring with the practitioners of the sender districts that have that structure built in. And even some of our smaller districts we do. So we meet with them. We talk through all the students. We have levels of concern. Are you a 5 or a 1? It took me a minute to realize which end was the one that we needed more support on when I started. I'm like, was it 1 good or 1 bad? But because I was getting in notes, and we have lots of student notes. We utilize our student information system a lot. So there's occasionally times when, as an administrator, we're taking calls and we can get into those notes and be like, coming over from 8th grade, we knew. But it doesn't always highlight every single person, right? Because the transition itself to high school, it's challenging for some. So they may not have been elevated by those sender districts, which is why the Alyssa's Mission and Erica's Lighthouse end up being great screeners for mental health when they start.
do you also utilize, other students may see, hey, the student I'm sitting next to in math is really struggling, so, can we help him?
Your best reports.
Yeah, I would say
are
that
typically
I-
other
What
students.
is that called?
Say
Safe to
something,
help.
say something.
If you see something, say something.
Yeah.
We always, it's safe to help, but we will drive that message home forever. If you see something, say something.
Yeah.
And our students do a great job of that.
Yeah, and I always tell students, you're not wrong. You're never wrong. Students are never wrong if they elevate that they notice a peer is struggling. Yeah, they're I've never had them be incorrect with a safe to help or coming into the office and getting help. They're clocking it correctly. They can tell what's going on.
Yeah, that's a really key thing is they're more in tune to us,
So true.
than we are, yeah. So.
Do you keep any data as far as like number of visits for social and emotional help, and do you track the type of visits that are occurring? And then do you allocate resources based on that data? So you're tracking on a year-to-year basis. Are you seeing any trends as far as like?
So we've talked a little bit about how, like, just kind of comparing the different ways. We get data from multiple different spots. So we have a sign-in sheet in the offices, a sign-in form where students come in and sign in. But occasionally, if a student is crisis, they go right back past that form. So we haven't found that to be the best indicator of our crisis numbers. We really utilize eSchool notes. We work with Scott on that because our practitioners put in notes in eSchool. And so we're able to see certain trends. That's really helpful in determining the tiered systems. When I started, I did an overview because I did not work in a district that had notes, the copious amount of notes. And so I was trying to get a feel on the best way to structure our alpha teams to make sure that we were providing services and no one was falling within the cracks. And so I worked with Scott very early on to run numbers and see how many counselor notes do I have, because if it's truly an RTI triangle, I should have more notes that represent tier 1, and I should have then fewer for tier 2, and then higher intervention should be tier 3. And so at North, just in the time that I was there, we did make some restructuring decisions based off of what the data was showing us, where kids were showing up the most. And when I started, they were showing up a lot in tier 2. A lot of crisis was occurring when I started 6 years ago, I think.
And I would add to that about so we're using 5 labs to take the notes, and we use our notes, we call them notes, but we refer to them internally as interventions.
Yeah.
And so we track like the number of crisis, the number of on-call, because our practitioners have to enter that into the student management system. So we're looking at that, like in our last meeting that we had, I think we were looking at our threat assessment note types and our crisis note types, just as a data point as with our team, with our department chairs for CSSS as well. And so we look at the trend data and things like that, as well as to be able to react to that. So.
And it does include notes like the course registration note that's in
Right.
there.
Right.
So I am able to also see non-crisis related, contacts as well, which has been great.
So the other question I have, so in the last 6 years, obviously, we've had some challenging years, lots of things happening. Have you found that you've had more crisis, more support needed for the students?
It's the intensity of need that I think is the greatest impact that we're seeing. We are seeing, there's been an uptick. There's certainly been an uptick in students that are requiring 504 plans, students that are requiring IEPs. We're seeing an uptick in hospitalizations, but that number isn't so much significantly larger as I think the greater story to be told is just the level of care that's needed. And there's lots of different theories out there as to why that might be. We're not exactly sure what it is. We just know that we're working in new ways to really work with outside providers and hospitals and other folks to wrap around our students and make sure they're supported.
Thank you.
I would
So
just
would you say that the pandemic overall had a significant increase on the mental health and awareness of our students?
I think so.
I would, the intensity and duration of hospitalizations post-pandemic has been notable. And we've responded by putting in more supports in CSSS to keep students academically like on point and helping. Someone needs to track those academics because then they're in the hospital stressing out their academics and just what it means to be a student while also in seeking intense care. We've had to respond to what that needs so we can help them navigate the landscape when they return. But the duration and intensity of hospitalizations, I would say, has gone up since the pandemic.
And I would say, like, to add to what Erin and Sarah are saying, is our student success coordinators, Mike Pacer and Christy Toth, have been instrumental in making that connection from the hospitalization, even preventative work and things like that. So, and that's something that we appreciate from the board supporting that. And if you knew it was out there, we have 2 people, 1 in each building, that really work on that. And that's, I think, has been very instrumental in supporting our students.
It's been huge, yeah. And I would say where the community is collaborating better. Just in the time that I've been here, I think there is a greater understanding post-pandemic of the fact we do have to link arms. And we are finding, like, Mike Pacer can continually talk to the same person at a particular facility. And so once we have those relationships built, those transition meetings are just much more seamless for students. And so the ability to dive into that, I think, as a community, we're acknowledging that we need to work together better.
And I would add, my last comment I would add, just to recognize these 2, is that when we recognized Karen and Kelly for the PATH program, these 2 were the ones that were like, Scott, we need a student success coordinator. And so we, had them develop the idea, and then the district supported it. So I give them credit for acknowledging the need that's out there, so.
Thank you for all you do.
Yeah, fantastic.
Thank you. It
I
makes
think
a
I said this
difference.
last year, and it dovetails nicely to what Scott just said. I mean, if you are seeing things that you feel that you don't have the resources you need to perform the duties you think are necessary, that's a perfect example, and that's what we're here for. And I think this board is very cognizant of the fact of the importance of addressing our mental health needs of our students, so we'd be
Absolutely.
very receptive to any of those ideas.
I'm glad Don said, I was thinking the same thing, but glad you brought it to his
Yeah.
attention.
And the board has been very supportive of, I
Absolutely.
think year over year, we've added resources in CSSS or related services. You know, at least for the 8 years I've been here, that's been a continual growth area in the district.
Okay, I gotta give another shout out, sorry. So, I do this at Cabinet where I do these spotlights, but I will say that, just because, you know, my history here at the district, Hank was the first superintendent technically that during our Institute Day talked about social emotional learning. And I think everyone was kind of floored, like, whoa, like, here's a superintendent that we've never had someone actually say that out loud and want to address it. So I do give, I mean, obviously I give credit to Aaron and Sarah, but Hank, I do give credit to you because you've always talked about it and you have that as something that I think in your core too. And I mean that sincerely. I mean, we've never had someone that actually went to an Institute Day and said, we're going to talk about social emotional needs. So I think that's impressive, so.
Doesn't win me any gold stars in the finance department.
But where do the gold stars actually matter?
And I'm in the Post-it note, Hank.
But students' mental health is just as important as their physical health.
It's all health.
And
It's all health.
it's all wrapped up together. Without one, we don't have the other. So it's really important. So thank you.
I think
Thank
it's
you all.
great that we have the access periods now to really have a consistent time where everybody's getting that message, you know, and not missing somebody who's, you know, in PE or in English or not there that day or doing, so that's helpful.
Well, when they talk about tier one, tier one is guaranteeing that every kid gets access to those interventions and supports. And if you don't have time for that, you don't get it. And everybody here has heard me say it many times, where you spend your time shows what you value most, right? So if we truly value this as a district, we've put our money there, but money is one thing. You can always make more money. You can't make more time, right? So a huge piece of changing the schedule model was creating that opportunity for time, whether it's during access for all of our students or during resource for students that need to access it on demand or on a regular basis. In tier 2 or 3 models, it creates time in their day for that.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great
Thank
job.
you.
Welcome to
Thank
stick
you.
around, but you're also welcome.
It's really nice out.
If you don't,
Dark out,
That's a
yeah.
good way to put
hey,
it.
if you don't stick around, if you don't
It is
stick around,
good.
I'm going to be offended. I'm just saying. See ya.
Oh, well, get over it.
For everything, Doug.
Being offended.
Yeah.
All right,
Enjoy
our
the
next
rest of
item,
your
next
evening.
couple of items belong to
Thank you,
Travis.
guys.
One of the most difficult things in the transition to this role has been trying to be quiet during a board meeting. 'Cause I'm so used to engaging in dialogue surrounding like all things, and I just want to add one thing to that conversation that happened. A good friend of mine wrote a book, and in education, we have really, you know, you've heard of Bloom's taxonomy and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We've really, in education, focused on Bloom's taxonomy a lot, and not so much on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so he coined a phrase with another co-author, and they said you have to Maslow before you bloom, right? So you have to take care of those hierarchical needs before any individual can really focus on the learning aspect. And I think what, you know, all the work that we're doing is really trying to focus on all of those things. So I just had to say that, especially since I
Got
had
it
the
out.
opportunity to
Got it
go.
out.
I got it
Now
out.
that you're holding the
I
talking
got it out.
stick.
Now that I'm holding this, I can go through it. I can pause. So I am going to talk about two things tonight. One is really this facility usage and rentals, and then advertising. These are two things that Hank early on said, hey, these are areas of focus that I really want you to tackle. So there's been a lot of research, a lot of dialogue, a lot of conversations, not a lot of what ifs. And I don't know if you remember the game of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And one of the helplines was call a friend. So I've brought in Kristen as a call a friend. Kristen has done a great job with our rentals. She knows a lot about all of the moving pieces of that. So if there's a question that maybe you guys have that I don't have an answer to, I'm going to call a friend, and Kristen is going to help out. But I do want to say that throughout all of this investigation, the lens has been, how can we increase the number of rentals that we have? That's been the lens, and that's been the question that I've asked through looking at all of the things. So to go through a couple of things that we've done. One was just an initial review. So we have a lot of documents that spell out a very well detailed process. And I was impressed when I went through all of our documents and the connections and all of the different pieces of everything that we had. Kristen also provided a lot of information on, here's some historical things, right? Here's been our billing for the last number of years. Here's how many rentals we've had, and I'm going to go through some of that tonight to kind of build that picture for you. But that was an important part. Next thing I did was I surveyed. So we have 9 districts that I surveyed about their rentals. That provided some great insight into what's happening in area schools. It also provided some great insight into what's not happening in some area schools. One of the responses was, we do not do any rentals at all. And that was one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is we're basically the park district, because we have developed and built things together, so our facilities are open all the time, right? So there's a lot in between there, but it was very interesting to see, and I shared all of our resources with those districts as hey, please help me to understand what you're doing. Here's what we're doing. And I got a lot of, man, I'm really impressed with what you guys have as a rental program. So that was reassuring. Also, from one of those things that really resonated, that you'll hear me talk about here in a little bit, is that the rental rates, from their rental rate to the C category, which I'm gonna go into more in depth, ranged anywhere from 125% to 300%. We're currently at 150%. So that means that anyone that is a category C, which I'm going to talk about, 150% of our regular rate is what a category C would be charged. So it ranged from 125 up to 300% in those numbers. So then the next thing I did was reviewed our board policies and looked through. There were no board policies that we needed to change for rentals for the suggested changes that I'm going to propose tonight. I also reviewed and read this document, which there are changes, and I'm going to highlight some of those things tonight. And I know the last time, I just want to note, the last time that this was reviewed by the board was in October of '22, in looking at those pieces. Before I go on, how many rentals do you think that we had this year? Outside rentals.
Didn't you put it in this report?
I did. Did you already look? If you look, don't tell me.
I'll tell you.
Don't tell me. You may already have read it. Was it surprising to you when you saw the number?
I think it's low.
I do too.
Think it's low? Okay. So it was surprising that it was that low? Okay.
But
So-
maybe I'm not reading it right.
No, that's okay, and we'll go through that. So let me go through. So this is in the 21-22 year. There were 100 total rentals that occurred in our district. Okay, so you can see that they're broken down by A, B, and C. And so again, just to kind of reiterate, Group A, that's group sponsored by District 99, established for the sole benefit of our district, and or initiated by District 99, including local government entities serving District 99. Okay, so that's basically that group, and you can see in that year, 41% of the total rentals were a category A.
Can you give an example of an entity
That's in,
in each of A, B, and C, Travis?
Yes, I can. So one would be, so initiated by District 99, if we have a staff member that is running some type of a club or organization, and it's directly benefiting our students that are primarily in District 99. That would be an A.
Like a summer camp?
Yeah.
Summer camps would be No?
Yeah?
I'm seeing no. Phone a friend is saying
No.
no to summer camps. So, give me a strong example.
We have an intergovernmental agreement
Yep.
with Park District, so that's one of our government agencies, so they would always be a category A rental. They don't get charged to use our facilities. Downers Grove Wolfpack basketball, they would be a category A. And what classifies them as category is not that it's just a teacher that coaches, because that doesn't define a category A. It's that it goes through our RevTrack system. Registrations come directly through our business office. Payments are made to the coaches from the district. So everything, we always say follow the money. So the money comes into the district, the money is paid out of the district, and that's what qualifies it as a category A. It is primarily our feeder programs, so students that are coming in from a D58, 66, 68, and like a Jason Leathers runs Wolfpack. And it's not that he's necessarily a coach of ours at categories in 7 and 8, it's how the money is followed into our programming. So those would be category A's.
So would an example be of that, because I'm still a little confused? If District 58, there's work being done, for the referendum, if they wanted, they're gonna have their orchestra concert and they wanted to rent your facility, so I don't have to sit in that hot gym over at Fairmont, but they could do that.
That is
It'd be
correct.
category A.
That'd be
Okay.
category A.
Like our promotion ceremonies for all our feeder schools, those
They're
are
category
category A promotion ceremonies. They use our facilities for
Okay.
free.
Yep.
When, I'm sure we'll break down into this, but it's, use our facilities for free, but we still charge them real-time cost. So we have to hire a supervisor to open the building for them. We have to hire a custodial crew to clean the building after them. So real-time costs that are associated with their rental are still charged, but the facility fee itself to use the gym is zero.
Facility fees, yeah. So this will be my last question on this, is A charge a different rate than B and C? I
For
think
the,
I saw
for the
that.
rentals, they're not charged a
Yeah.
rental rate at all
For A.
for A.
I thought I saw
And B and C, yes, there is a different rental rate
Oh, so they
for
don't charge you
those.
anything. Okay.
Yep, you're correct on that. Okay, then category B is not-for-profit, community groups and educational institutions. Can you give some examples of what we have for that?
So, nonprofits, I'm trying to think of who we would have as a nonprofit that currently runs for us.
They'd have to have that
They have to
holding
have
of
a non-
prove that they're a
they have to have
nonprofit.
501c3 certificate. So for instance, I'll give you a clear example of one that's happening right now. We have a teacher who works for our district. He wants to run a summer camp for a feeder program, although he hasn't filled out the 501c3 paperwork yet. So at this point, he's a C rental. He's like any other community renter. He is not nonprofit status. He's not dealing through our business office. Therefore, he's treated as any other community member, even though he works for our district. And it's for the future benefit of our students. But until the proper paperwork is filled out to show me they're not gaining a profit from it, or that their coaches aren't being paid by our district through our district services, then that would be a nonprofit. So,
Where did you put the
Don
foundation?
Renner, we run a nonprofit. No, we categorize you as an A. You're a Rotary.
I'm not with Rotary, but I'm with Grove Express and then the Roadrunners Soccer Club, and they're both 501c3.
Yes.
Yeah, so that would be a B.
So like the swim clubs are not a B?
So one of our swim clubs is a B. Hornet Swim Club
Hornets
is a
a
B
B,
rental.
okay.
And,
I have
Express
a
is
problem with that.
Yeah.
Because that is District 86.
But they-
501c3.
They comply,
I
so the reason they're a B is not because it has anything to do with our district, it's because they've filed a 501c3 certificate, any organization, whether it's in Downers Grove,
See, I have a problem
in
with that.
Texas, if they want to rent our facilities and they can give me a nonprofit certificate, they are categorized as a
Sorry, I
nonprofit,
disagree with that.
regardless of where they live. C would be Express.
Yeah.
Judy Bussey's group is a C rental, and she doesn't have a nonprofit certificate, and therefore she pays a for-profit rate.
What is it from?
Swimming.
Another
Swim club.
I don't know.
So when maybe I didn't read, the 14 and the 19, like, what, is that just flat out number of,
So the top is all
Different.
but the pool.
okay,
The middle line is
Is
the
just
pool,
pool?
just pool, and then the total count is
okay.
both of those
Okay.
combined. Okay, so in category B, during, again, the 21-22 school year, there were 33 rentals, and 33% of the rentals were in category B. And then category C is everyone else. They don't have a non-for-profit status, they don't meet any of the other categories. And in looking at that, again, we had 26 total that were there. Again, 19 from the pool, 7 that were not related to or that did not rent the pool. And then again, that is a 26%.
So each swim club is just one of those 19?
Each time that they rented, so this is each time that the facility is rented. It's not saying that we had 100 different entities that rented. 100 times during the 21-22 year, our facilities were rented.
100 rentals, basically.
Correct. Correct. And that's just, it's the breakdown of the A, B, and
Seems
C.
low. That's not
So,
each
yeah,
practice.
I think you misunderstood your
Yeah,
question.
it's
So
not like each practice.
It's not each practice, so it's each
It's like-
renter.
yeah.
So the 41 represents, Hornets is a renter.
Yeah.
Their rental is all year long.
Okay.
So for instance, during the winter months, we have people that sign contracts from, say, November all the way through March.
Yeah.
And they are here every Sunday, all 4 months, and they are considered one renter.
Okay.
But their duration of their rental period is for a 4-month period. So the numbers are probably a little bit, seem low to you because the Hornets, for instance, are here 5 days a week,
All year.
11 months a year.
Basically, yeah.
I think they take off 4 weeks. if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
So this is the count of like rental agreements.
Rental agreement, so they have one rental agreement. Basic
So it's a
strategy,
little
for instance, is
deceiving.
currently renting our tennis courts.
I'll look back, but I don't believe that that's what I have was, these are the number of rentals. So not that we have 100 different, we don't have 40 in the A category of renters, it's 40 rentals. So I'll look back and clarify that with you when I go through and look at the data to make sure that the data
I know.
is understood.
I have a swimmer.
I'm in-
Yeah, it can't be, because in the month of August, for instance.
So this was 21-22. So when we get to the next year, we had 123 total rentals, right? So it's higher than the previous year in looking at that. And you can see the percentages of A, B, and C are different than they were in the previous year, right? So 39% of those were A rentals, about 37% were B, and about 25% were C rentals. And again, for this year, and this is through April, so this does not include May, nor did it include June, anything that we have set up. Again, 35% A, 32% B, and about the same amount, well, the exact same percentage for our C rentals. I'll clarify that's what that number means, and I'll send that out to you. But that's
I was just curious, in addition to the Express and Hornets, who else is renting the pool?
We don't have a whole lot
Not a whole
of
lot.
extra time to rent the pool. Every blue moon, we do a lifeguard certification class, or maybe a Woodridge Park District might rent our pool.
Okay.
SDEAA swim conference, the teams from the middle schools, they actually heavily use it in April and May only. They
Okay.
come in after school and they do their little swim practices, and then, for instance, this year on April 30th, we had a SDEAA swim conference, and they used our pools for that. So, but beyond that, between our own internal programming and Hornets and Express using the pools almost nightly, we don't have a whole lot of extra time for pool usage.
See, it's a little deceiving because the Express or the Hornets contract is, 5 days a week, where some of the other ones are only like 3 times or 5
Or
times.
one time.
And so the dollar amounts are considerably different for each contract. So in a way, it's a little deceiving to say only 32% of the volume is coming from the Bs when it could be a larger amount of rental
Money.
fee.
We'll double check the numbers.
You know what I'm saying is
We
that.
can get the equivalent dollars too that comes for each source.
I think this is just number of rentals, not necessarily the
Right,
financials. So it's not
Yeah,
30%.
this is not-
30% of
I
the
understand
rentals.
that, but I'm just thinking, if you're wondering about dollar amounts coming in to the district, C could be, 150,000, let's say, where, there were a lot higher numbers in each one of the rentals. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not all rentals are created equal.
Right,
Yeah.
yes,
100%. Agree
And
with you.
so that makes the percentages different, because it could be skewed more, 50% could be C. You know what I'm saying?
This is just, this is the
Dollars will be
sheer, yeah.
different than usage, yeah.
This is the
Right.
sheer
Right,
number.
right,
Yep.
right. So, that makes a difference.
It does. But again, it's important to look and see where are the percentages broken down, because know that we do not charge a rental fee for category A, right? Know that C is 150% of what B renters are charged, right? And again, it's a per hour. So again, saying that one rental is in B and one rental's in C, B could be for 10 hours and C could be for 3 hours, right? So again, there's a lot of moving pieces with all of these and every rental agreement in and of themselves.
Would you say, though, that criteria is pretty universal, that
Yes.
most districts operate under the A, B, and C?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
I'm probably getting a little ahead here. But the other thing I would think you guys have a calendar or something where you'd have to even see if the rooms that they're interested in or spaces are even available.
Yep.
Right,
Okay.
right.
It's, yes, that's a huge, the availability, and when we're renting. So you'll see, again, that's a recommendation is to expand the when, and looking at that, those pieces.
I asked that because I figure that can also probably determine the number of rentals we're able to get in the course of a period of time, because I'm certain that these facilities are used, well, I know they are, they're for the school, so they're used in a lot of cases probably for our own needs, edification, so.
They are used a lot, yes. Yep. Okay, let me move on to some numbers and comparisons and looking at where we're at compared to 3 area school districts. So when you look at our charge compared to these 3 districts, again, A class, that's a common thing where there is no rental charge that is there. So we're all even on that. For B class, you can see that we charge more per hour than each of these 3 districts. It varies, right? Some from 56 cents to $6.48 more per hour. And again, that's on average in looking at those. When we look at the C class, we charge less per hour than 2 and more than the 3rd. You can see between Hinsdale and Glenbard, we have considerably less. And when you look at Lyons, we're about half of more than we are less with Hinsdale. So there's more disparity in the C. So you'll remember I said 125% to 300%. Lyons was at that 125%. These others were at 200+% as they were looking at their rates.
Are all this is tennis court versus baseball diamond versus swimming pool
This is
versus
comparing.
classroom?
This is comparing each of the places for each district, each of the spaces. So when we look at the baseball field for each district, that's the difference. When we look at the auditorium, here's the difference. That's why I say on average.
Yeah.
So it's not saying that for our Cs that we charge $22.52 less than Hinsdale does for each of them. It's on average across all of the rental spaces and what we charge. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I mean, it just seems like it's a lot easier to rent certain spaces would be much cheaper, like a meeting space, for
Agreed.
instance, versus a.
Agreed.
a
This is
baseball
not saying that
field.
this isn't the amount. This is the difference
Okay.
in what we're charging.
The difference in the average across all of the spaces.
Correct. Yep.
It might be helpful do we have the rental sheet where they can just kind of eyeball it?
We have,
We'll
yep,
get there in
we're
a
gonna
second.
we're gonna get
Yeah,
there.
we'll get there.
Yep, yep. Okay. So again, putting in perspective, comparing how are we in comparison to the others is an important part of looking to see what's going on with our rates. So again, moving along to the regulations and general conditions. So I already referenced that this was last updated in October of '22. It is referenced in Board Policy 820 as kind of that guiding document in what it is that we do. So here, moving on to proposed changes. One of the areas that we've been working on all year long is a switch to an online scheduling process. But it's not just for external, it's for internal. So we've really focused this year on our internal component to make sure, because we have, our spaces are utilized a lot, and knowing what's available when is a really important aspect. And our online platform is called Master Library, runs that, so we're looking at ML schedules, and that is something that internally we'll use to make sure that the space is reserved, but also it will be used for our rentals. So it's easy to look and see, hey, is that available? What does that look like? There's more of an automation of a process to that, as far as notifications, as far as submitting documents, all across the board. So we're aiming to be ready to go for that with our externals in August. Really, September 1 is kind of that date. That's when that next window opens up that we want to make sure. So in August, we'll have it ready, and then really preparing for that September 1 next window of the quarter that's open.
How were you doing this before? Were you just a phone call or something like that?
There's a lot of checking. I don't know if you want to describe it. It's a lot
I
of.
don't need to know.
Yeah.
I just know that probably would be very.
Yeah, so
technical.
we do utilize 8 to 18, which has a lot of our events and different things that occur that are on a calendar. But there's a lot to, when you're talking about the size of the event, dictates as well as like, okay, can the other parts of the building be used? We might be out of parking, right? So that's part of the challenge when you look and you say, this is open, but we don't have any additional parking, and putting that parking burden on the neighborhood and all of those things is, so there are areas and instances when we have something going on that we black those out, those dates, because we know that we're at capacity, if you will, in looking at those pieces.
No, I like the idea of some scheduling, because this is in addition to all the work that you already do around this. So having something to take that tactical piece out is a good idea.
Yep. So we've been going through training and doing that, and we have more to do to get ready for that. But one of the things that we have discussed, a proposed change to this, is that a certificate of insurance and applicable materials showing whether you're in category A or B are going to be needed at the front end of things. Yeah. So sometimes we get into the process and we're going, and hey, we really need to know what this is, or we need a certificate of insurance. Your event's coming up in a week. Hey, we need your certificate of insurance, right, type of a thing. So this would be where they would provide that at the beginning of the process, and then that would, if you will, unlock the next steps that they can
Well, that
take
only
in the
makes
schedule.
sense, because if they don't have it, you can't rent.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that just makes sense.
Yep. And then the third on this slide is to have our public use statement that is in this document align with what the signs that are at our stadiums. So it's just replacing what was in there with what is exactly at our stadiums for consistency with that. So a couple other proposed changes. One is to do weekday rentals. This would be after 6 p.m. With the explanation that last-minute cancellations to meet our internal needs are more likely, right? When you're talking about during the week and going through that. After 6 is a time, again, I met with our athletic directors, CMG, to make sure, like, what does this look like? Can we do that? We actually surveyed our rental supervisors as well. Would you be willing to? What does that look like? And 13 of the 14 said yes, I would do a weeknight rental. So that was a strong message that, yes, this is something that we can do along with those other conversations. Then the last proposed change is changing that Class C to a 200%. Currently, it's at 150%. And what that does is it achieves a couple of different things. It better aligns with our area districts. So if you remember, we were considerably lower than two of the three. So what that would do is, on average, our rates would be, again, that's using that same comparison, $5 less per hour for Class B. If you remember, we were more than everyone on that, so it would reduce us to less per hour when we compare it to those same schools, and $10 less per hour for our Class C rentals across the board with that. So what in essence that does is allows us to provide for a lower associated cost for Class B. So while Class C is going up because we're having it's not across the board, but in many of the areas it would go up, Class B then would be reduced. And that's something that I heard in talking with individuals, is that our rental rate was a challenge to be able to meet. What does that look like? How do we do that, especially when they look at some area schools? And that was what we saw in that same thing. The other challenge we have, I know we're a partner with our park district. Their rates are higher than ours, but they don't have other fees that are built in with their fees. It's more of a flat rate in looking at that. So taking all of those things into consideration, that's the suggestion to make that change for our Class C. Any questions about either of those?
Can I ask about the first bullet? So does the first bullet mean you want to open up for weekday rentals,
Yes.
but you want to have the option to cancel last minute if the district needs the space?
Yes.
So is that compelling for renters? Like, do you think is that sort of addressing a need, like there's a need for weekday rentals?
Yep.
Do people who are renting, are they open to?
I think they
Last-
understand that. So let's say the football team, needs to go on and they need practice time, they're going to get kicked
Right.
off the field because they know that they're going to be
So
using
there's a
the
rental
field.
need for that?
There's a need for more, so our places during the weekends and different, when we have our rental windows open, we've got a lot going on. Yeah, if you think like 114, it's a lot of rentals with the different pieces and all the other activities that we have going on. And with our CMG, that we have to turn around those spaces and get them ready for school.
So this
and
frees
do
up
all
some
of that
additional
stuff.
capacity, even though
Yes.
there are restrictions?
Because even though there's restrictions, it provides another window of potential that might meet some needs. And it also provides us with the ability, we have staff here, so preparing and getting ready for the next school day is a lot easier than on the weekends.
We finding that some of the other schools are doing the weekday rentals?
There's some, yes, it's not consistent across the board. Just looking through that lens of how do we get more, this is a way that we can get more.
And then with those last minute cancellations, would we be open to relocation of because I'm thinking if you're having something and you need a space, and then, you have to share that, but would we be open to providing a different space before we just cancel the?
Yeah, we would look through and see if there's another way to accommodate and meet that. Sometimes those rentals, it probably wouldn't be so much for these, because we are talking about likely a last minute cancellation due to weather, especially in the
Don't
spring.
plan your wedding at DGN.
Yeah. Don't plan a rehearsal. But a lot of times, like for those other things where it would be more like a classroom or the cafetorium or something along those lines, that's not likely going to, could it still? Yes, it could be. But those have specific setup needs, right? So that's more of a challenge of relocating and getting something else set up. So this is more likely, we see this more related to sports.
But right now, like our turf fields are not available for weekday rentals.
Correct.
Yeah, between
Correct.
the the band and.
But yeah, I mean, I think we have
all the other things.
to leave ourselves the option of last minute cancellations because we're the number one tenant, right? I mean,
Yep.
if something has to be rescheduled.
The hardest is the spring.
It is.
It's the number of activities in athletics going on and the unpredictable weather makes it so that schedules get moved around, practices get moved around, those kinds of things.
Yep.
So that's where you gotta you have to say priority number one is what we offer here.
Yep.
And if we can get you in, we'll get you in. What we've done in the past is, because priority number one is us, and it's so unpredictable, we don't rent to anybody, right? And then community members drive by a field on a beautiful night like tonight, and they're like, how come I can't use that field, right? Well, because we're reserving it just in case. This allows us to open that up, but we still have to hold the just in case, just in case.
Yeah.
Good way of framing it. So looking at what that looks like, and there's, again, you guys have this information, so you can see a lot of the C, and it's been redlined, if you will, right? The C are increasing, and we kept them at an even number because we're at 200%. So half of, so to keep the Group B at exactly 200%. So those are the changes for those top areas. So again, this is where you can see, not every space has the same rate. Dependent upon, again, part of the thing that we have to be really careful with our rates is wear and tear, and what does that look like for future, and how do we maintain and make sure that our spaces are kept up, because renters, they use the space, right? And so how do we maintain some of those things?
For the gym, does that include the new scoreboard?
So we have a separate, that would be probably like an additional, when we talk about like AV, because that's not just a turn on and hit a button. You have to have the iPad, you have to have training and going through that. So it would be almost like having like our student auditorium managers that help with something along those lines.
Is there a reason on this chart the pool is not
It's on the
listed?
next page.
I got it.
Oh, on the next.
It's just long, it's too long to put all on one and for you to maybe be able to see.
Okay.
So I have it broken down into three different things. And again, this is taking right off of our current sheet, our current rate sheet, and just showing what the recommended changes are.
So we don't rent the baseball field? We don't, those aren't ours?
Correct. We do not.
We do not, because of
They're not-
the wear and tear on the fields.
A lot harder to maintain.
And we don't own the one at North.
That's what I thought.
We practically own the one in North.
Well, I know, but.
It's ours. It's ours to maintain, it's ours to use. But just the recommendation from the folks that manage those baseball fields recommend that we do not use them more than we do for our own use.
Do you hear from the community on this at all? Like,
Occasionally.
why are you renting to us, or why are you not using it?
Yeah.
Like, both
It's
sides
more
of
on the
it?
next thing that Travis is gonna talk about, which is not the cost for the space. People understand that. They don't understand the personnel cost that comes along with the space.
So in the, sorry to interrupt. but
For a
in-
lot of, like the Park District, that cost is inclusive
Oh,
of,
I see.
like personnel and whatever, but the hours in which they run a Park District are different than the hours in which we run a school.
Got it.
So, people show up to rent, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm willing to pay whatever for space, and they see this, and then when we give them the itemized bill of the other costs for supervisor, security, or custodial, or those kinds of pieces that go with it, that's where the sticker shock kind of comes in.
Which is shared before.
It's shared before,
bill.
but people don't, like when they hop on the website and start looking for a cost,
Yep.
they don't parse out all of that.
Yep.
So when you're doing a rental agreement, what, do you address, like, equipment damages, or?
Yeah, there's all of the different pieces, like the responsibilities, all of that is in the rental agreement. This is the other part of the side, right? We have to have people, and a large part of this is due to safety. Again, and the vastness of our facilities. We're not, due to our structure, we're pretty open. So keeping people, if they rent the common space, keeping them in the common space is a challenge. If they rent the auditorium, keeping them in the auditorium can be a challenge because they can go into other areas. And that's worrisome, right? I can just say it's worrisome. So we need to make sure for safety reasons that we have those things in place. So when you look at we're making some recommended changes here to cover our increase in personnel that I know Rob has shared with the wage memo or will. And so this is to be in line with those different costs and associated with that.
So which charges are almost always consistent? I know if you're not renting a pool, you don't need a pool supervisor, you don't need a lifeguard, but would I have to have a supervisor, custodian, and maybe security for anything that I'm doing?
For sure, our supervisor, the custodian's not there the entire time. It is for cleanup, and so it's not for the entirety of that. The supervisor is there for the entirety of that.
And then security?
Security, that's not one that we use very often.
So we have some, it just depends on the event. I would say 9 out of 10 times you're not hiring security. We had some very large wrestling meets where we've had to hire security based on previous years or things like that, but it is not the norm. It is definitely as needed, depending upon the type of event, size of event. Almost always a supervisor, unless you have like a classroom rental on a weeknight where we have custodials in the building. The doors are open. We don't need somebody to unlock the space. On a Sunday when our building is completely shut down, there's nobody here, not even a custodian. We do need somebody to come in and unlock the doors, secure the space, and make sure that the renter stays where they're supposed to.
Used to be back in the dark So ages. does someone get like a full, like,
They had.
quote, like, I want to rent on X day for these hours, and then you say, okay, well, the rent would be this, and then you need X, Y, and Z, and.
I would say
I don't know if they're still
our
there.
release dates probably eliminate most of our renters right off the bat. Somebody looking for an auditorium needs to advertise ahead of time, 6 months, and because of our release schedule, because of our internal programming needs first and foremost, they usually can't wait till December 1st for a March rental. So that usually say, are you available in March? I say, I'm sorry, if you want to check back, say December 1st, I'm happy to review that with you. Then like, oh, well, we can't wait till December 1st. Sorry, our internal programming takes priority. So that's kind of step one. Step two is it available? Well, there's an application process depending upon, like Travis said, the impact of the event on other spaces. I need to make sure I have staffing, depending upon how many people are having to come. Do I need tech? Do I need 3 tech, stage, curtains, lights, sound, and an auditorium manager? So each rental is talked very thoroughly on the forefront. Then they usually ask how much. I usually do the kind of a verbal, and sometimes we lose them right there, and other times they're like, okay, I'm looking to move forward. They start an application. It gets run through to our administrators at the building. They take their eyes on, ears on it. Sometimes an athletic director will be like, it looks available now, but I already just committed to hosting conference, so it's not going to be available. So then it gets kicked back to me, and I say, so sorry, we can't carry on. So there's quite an extensive approval process, but once we commit, very rarely do we cancel. Our pools sustain some cancellations because of many blackout dates, obviously impact events, and we have some pool shutdowns because of mechanics. The weather, moving our sports teams that were outside now inside. We have a pretty good track record, and we're very, very consistent with our policies and procedures. I think we've come a long way.
So the online form is going to help a little bit, but there's still a lot of internal vetting and communication that
There will
needs.
still be a kick around approval process.
Yeah.
It's not like they go
It's
in
not
and they're like, they're still gonna apply.
Yep.
And that application will still go through that same process. And it might look available in the system, but once it goes through that checkpoint, somebody might say, well, because of open house or what have you, we won't have the parking to it.
And we did look at those windows to see if there was any wiggle room in expanding those or reducing them. And I checked with each of the buildings to say, by when do you know? And that aligns very well with, actually, we're earlier for that. We open up April 1st for the last window. And by May is when they're saying we have everything locked in for that next window. So in talking with both activities and athletics, those are the windows that they operate under as well. Again, we have to make sure our internal things are in order first before we go out, because we don't want that to be a frustration for people too, right? Where we say, hey, we were able to meet that, but now this came up and we can no longer do that. That I've seen that as well, and that does not work well. So know that, again, with our current cost structure for the actual rentals, if we were to have the same number of rentals for next year as we do this year, we would be looking at about a $5,300 less in revenue that we would have. But we believe opening up these weeknights, we will likely have more rentals than we did, which would increase, and we would be serving our Category B better than we are with our prices and looking at the comparison, right? So with that change in bumping up C, reducing B, again, if we had the same number of rentals in the same spaces, right, all of those things, we would be looking at about a $5,300 less that we would have in total revenue for that program.
So refresh our memory.
We want to
How much
reduce
money
B just
are
to
we bringing in?
be in line with our.
To be in line and to remove some of what I've heard from the rentals, that's a challenging component to be able to meet in order to rent.
So, I'm sorry, I don't remember what the bottom line is. How much money are we bringing in on rentals today?
This year, do you remember off the top of your head?
We'll take 2 seconds.
Yep.
Powered up.
Yep. Thank you.
It's not in the report.
It's not in the report.
We can bring it back at the next time when
You know,
we're
I'm
getting
just
close to making
curious what we're
decisions.
talking about. You said it would be $5,300 difference.
Yeah, they've done the math, but we don't have it for you.
On the average, it's anywhere between about $125,000 to $150,000 a year in revenue that we're
Revenue.
doing in rentals. So
Okay.
about $5,300 less than that.
Okay. That's awesome.
So again, that's looking through that lens of how do we encourage and have more rentals. So the two major things are that the cost structure and the availability of weeknights.
Do you feel like specific groups have come to you that you have not been able to
accommodate,
serve, and you're going to be able to now? I mean, I remember like years ago, and I mean like 20 years ago, like we used to have swimming lessons on the weekends and like adult lap swim and, things
Through the
like,
Park District?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I think they gave that up. 'cause
they just give it up altogether.
Yeah.
I don't
The
know
Park
what that.
District stopped doing that.
Yeah, I don't know what
But
that.
was it like because they couldn't
I don't
come
know
to?
the reason. It was before my time.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the true impact of this will be, right? But again, just hearing from those other pieces, I think this will help with the increase in opportunities for individuals to rent our facilities.
So you feel like the $5,300 would be recouped in additional rentals?
I think we'd be close, right? And part of what I heard as well from my takeaway from the board is you're looking for ways to get the community in more, right? What does that look like? And that's why I said there's a fine line between what we charge and making sure that we can still maintain and keep up our facilities. So I think we're right at that, that fine line. I wouldn't want to go anything different than that. If we were to go to 175% structure, keep C at the same and go to 175, we're looking at about a $2,300 difference. So if that's something that is more, you think that is more in line with that total amount, just throwing that figure out, done the math with that as well, and what that can look like.
I've got a few comments. I'm not sure that the impetus behind this research is necessarily should be focused on how much money we're going to derive from this. I think a big part of the question should be, do we want to make our facilities available to community and community organizations? Is that our focus? And I think that's a question, I think, for the board probably, as far as setting a policy decision as to, you started your analysis like there's some districts who just sort of act as a park district. And then there's others that everything is a rental. And I think we need to decide is who are we as a board? Where do we sit in that spectrum? Are we somewhere in the middle, or are we somewhere on either end of the polar opposite of the question? So I think we probably need to have more discussions about that. I do want to see the financial figures. It's hard for me to give you guidance on the rate structures without seeing the actual revenues that are coming in.
Would you like to see that broken down?
Total revenues are coming in and by facility, it seems like the pool is probably our primary revenue source, since we're not really renting out our turf fields during the week. So I'm assuming that most of our rentals income is probably coming from the pool. But I'd like to see, where our revenue's coming from.
Okay.
And then we can gauge, Travis, I'd be interested to know, if I'm just, as accountant background, if I am going to put $1 million into the track renovation this summer, I'm going to depreciate that over time, and I'm going to know that 15 years from now, I'm going to have to replace that track. And how can I get some rental income on that track and maybe set up some kind of sinking fund so that 15 years from now, we don't have to necessarily come up with the total capital out of pocket. We're utilizing some of these revenues to fund these in advance. And I kind of look at it that way. And the turf fields, what's the lifespan on the turf field? And if we open it up to the community, and now we're going to have soccer clubs and football clubs, practicing it on it every day of the week, what's that going to do, wear and tear on that? And is that depreciation now go from 10 years and now it's 5 years? And what's the cost of replacing that field? And what kind of revenue do we have to generate in order to substantiate doing that? I think this project, there's a lot more here that needs to be done for us to really make educated decisions on this. But and then a few more things. I'd also relook at groups A, B, and C. Like the example about Wolfpack being in Group A, I don't understand why they're treated differently.
They're pretty much our organization.
Okay.
They're run as if they were one of our clubs or activities.
But is that what we want to do? I'm not sure.
The huge difference is there's no personnel cost for us, because there are pretty much our employees.
Okay.
So it's like running one of our activities or clubs. That's why they're in Group A. And we've offered that to other groups. If you want to find a staff member here and you want to go through all the process and everything else to be Group A, we'll help you get there. But it starts with finding a staff member that wants to put in that time for that organization.
So my question is that our policy?
Well, it is at this point. I
Well,
mean,
yeah,
if we
yeah.
want to change it, we can
That's
change
what I'm
it, but
saying, that's what I'm saying. So should that be our policy, that because the Wolfpack have like staff members on their club program, should they be treated differently? I'm not so sure.
And I would say it is an and, because they have to do additional things in order, because all of that, the money flows through our systems and the checks and balances.
I'd like to look at A, B, and C, and look at, what are those categories and what are those classifications, and what should we do? And it really dovetails into the main question is, where do we fall on that spectrum? And if we want to benefit community organizations who are training our kids to play these sports at the high school level, shouldn't we sort of be putting them all on the same par?
Shouldn't we
if you will?
encourage them?
I mean, the Park District has affiliate agreements. So the Park District has affiliates with certain organizations in the community, and they have to meet certain thresholds, right? You can't be a Hornets organization who have all kids in Hinsdale and get access to the Downers Grove Park District facilities on a discounted rate. You have to prove to them that you have a certain number of kids that are going to be attending,
District
the-
99
well, this
or
community
58 or.
in order to get that discount rate. And I'm just thinking that if we looked at A, B, and C, we might be able to do something like that. But again, that goes back to that first question, which is, do we want to generate revenue from these facilities and use it as a sinking fund to replace, these facilities down the road?
That wasn't our understanding of what the board was asking from what we talked about last year.
Okay.
Which was my understanding, which I then shared with Travis, was that I heard board members that were interested in our fields and our facilities being more available to the community.
That's the way I feel,
And
but I
that's
don't
we're
know.
opening up time for it to be available, for availability, and Travis evaluated what other Group B, those Group B tend to be those types of organizations. There's a lower cost associated with the facilities along with that. If we want to reevaluate this from the ground up, we can do that, but the board's going to need to assign that. Those questions you're asking are not things we can answer. In '22, I brought this to the board. That's the time we last reviewed it. I asked the board, do you want to evaluate those things? The board did not want to evaluate those things in '22, so we just rolled the same processes forward.
Yeah.
If we have a majority of the board that wants to look at this from the ground up, I'm happy to do that, but then I'm going to need policy committee or an ad hoc facilities committee to make recommendations for the board of these like ground rules that you would like to revisit in the policy. Not the policy, the procedure document, which is approved by the board and subsequently serves as policy, to reevaluate those things. We're working kind of within the box that we already have drawn and looking for, within that box, how do we make our facilities more accessible to the community? That's what we've kind of, and we're glad we're having this conversation, because that's why we brought it to you as, like, within the box we have, here's what we can offer to make our facilities more available to the community. If you want to rethink how that's drawn from the beginning, in which the board is interested in putting in a sunk cost for our community groups to use our facilities, and if that's going to change the duration that our turf field goes from like 12 to 15 years to 5 to 7 years, and instead of every 12 to 15 years you're going to spend $1 million on each turf field, to every 5 to 7 years you're going to spend $1 million on each turf field, then let's have that conversation, but let's understand that true fiscal impact. And then we got to have conversations about what are we going to do within our overall budget to prioritize for that additional use of our facilities. Because right now, we're not prioritizing that. Right now, it's a as-you-go thing. So it's every 20 years when our referendum rolls around, or when we demonstrate we need use, like what we did for these projects this summer, and then we go out and borrow independently for those projects. But if you start accelerating those big-ticket items, money's going to have to come from somewhere to offset those big-ticket items. Not like this is board decisions to make. These are board conversations to have. We're happy to manage them however you want us to. But there's a lot of moving parts if we start pulling on this that are far greater study and thinking than just make this more available to the community.
So I would say, sitting here before, I mean, they're all valid, right? And no one brought these up. So that's probably why we didn't extend into where Don is going, because now listening to them, I'm like, well, that makes perfect sense, because if it accelerates our, accelerates our wear and tear and accelerates the spending, then it is something to think about. So having 3 new board members, it's just because he brings up a point that we hadn't thought through, but it makes sense because the spending will accelerate, right? If it goes from 15 to 7. So.
But we also have to look at realistically, how many hours is, let's say, the turf field at each place going to be able to be utilized? It may only be 10% of the time, which should not increase the life or decrease the lifespan by half if it's only 10% of the time being utilized. You know what I'm saying?
Depends on which variables you pull on.
I mean,
Right.
when you make the turf fields available for rental after 6 p.m., if those rental rates are market, and I'm not convinced they are, you're gonna have teams on those fields every night, 5 nights a week, and you're gonna really wear and tear those facilities.
But I'm not sure that our fields are going to be available for 5 nights a week, because we have lacrosse on there, we have soccer on there.
That's right.
After practice. So those games are at night. So that's 2 nights a week.
Yeah.
Then we have the band practicing, and I'm sorry, our band needs to go before we rent it. And then, any other boys and girls soccer. I'm just throwing that out there.
You've got turf practice fields, and you've got 2 practice fields at both campuses now, and then you've got the main turf fields on the athletic,
Right. But I mean, they're still going to be utilized, maybe 3 days a week at night for our inner athletics.
Well, I'm just saying now you're going to have 5 nights a week use, because you're going to have you're going to have the high school still, but you're also going to have these private organizations who are going to want to use it. There's not a lot of turf fields in Downers Grove.
Right.
There just isn't. And these organizations in our communities are like vying for space, like at Dorhofer. I go there on a fall evening, and you have half of the field being utilized by 2 football teams and the other half being utilized by 3 soccer teams. And they're desperate for turf field usage. So if we open this up, it's going to happen. There is a need there.
Right. But I guess I'm just saying we have to figure out how many hours that is going to be. Because like I said, we still have competitions that we're going to be.
Well, our team can do that. I'm just saying you're going to fill in the gaps, and it comes down to a policy decision.
Yes.
Do we want to open this up and allow our fields to have that kind of wear and tear on it? And what kind of wear and tear is that going to do on a turf field? And how is that going to minimize the life expectancy of that field? And what's the cost to T99? And is it worth doing that?
Right.
Well, maybe we could, though, since you said your time frame was August or whatever to be ready for the next, we could like dip a toe in, right? And we could make a few little changes, like not open everything up, but the
That's what
weekday
I'm
thing.
thinking.
Could we say, okay, what if we open it up 1 more day a week? And it's not 5 days a week, it's now 3. And could we, are these rates, attracting the people that we hoped more B and fewer C or whatever? So like we could, and then have a meeting around some of the bigger questions. Are A, B, and C defined correctly? And whatever the issue is with the Hornets, like address all that at a future. But maybe this is like we pilot some different. For this.
Then also, do we need to open up the turf fields at all?
That's what I was gonna say.
Because,
They're
like you were
brand new.
saying, like,
Yeah.
yeah, well, like you were saying about the baseball fields, the recommendation is to let those fields recover. They can't take that wear and tear. This turf fields, brand-new turf fields, fall potentially in that same boat. If we
figure
want
out
them
what
to
the
be
funding
at
is.
maximum, playability for what we need it for, we may not be able to open it up.
Oh,
So,
and I think we're probably all saying the same thing, but I want to be sure. The possibility could be, and this may be what we're saying, we can have some of the spaces available during the week. We can start there. Seems like it's going to be more work, based on what Hank is thinking, to open it up as far as looking at the cost associated with wearability. Is that what you guys are saying? Because I'm thinking perhaps we don't open everything up for starters till we figure out, till we do a little bit more research on those high-cost spaces. And we start with like commons or places that are less cost to us, those things during the weekdays. And then later on, or maybe never, we consider, based on what the information comes back with, we consider those other higher cost spaces.
The higher cost spaces are what people want.
Yeah, well, okay, but
I'm
But
just
right
saying.
now, we're at when you said full spectrum, right? We're at the low end, right, where we don't rent a lot, right? Is that what you said at the outset? Like
No,
where
no.
are we on that spectrum today, would you say?
The spectrum range from, we are like a park district because the
Yep.
facilities were built with the park district, right? And so it's the school and the park district too. We don't rent at all.
Okay.
Those were the two extremes of the 9 districts that I surveyed, right? So we're in the middle to the higher end of the number of rentals that we have. So I don't view it as we're not
Not
renting,
letting?
we're not letting people in. The challenge is how busy our facilities are and what people are buying for during the times when the rentals are available. So that's why having that weeknight expands, we don't have that available right now, right? So that it expands the potential opportunity. And I don't, at the money that we're talking about across the board, it's going to be really hard to get that sinking fund to get it, to pay for it.
Yeah, the dollars you're talking about are not.
So we'd have to increase the
huge.
rates much higher, I
Or the
think.
usage
in
and the
order to get-
volume. Yeah.
And likely both.
Could we send a part of this discussion to the policy committee?
Sure, absolutely.
And work this summer with Travis to come back? Because you're not asking for a vote on this
No,
tonight,
this
right?
was the first, like, hey, here's kind of an idea that we've been working on that we think matches the vision of getting our facilities more accessible to the community by lowering the B rate and increasing the dates in which it's available, right? And it's kind of the easy fix, right? If we don't like how A, B, and C are organized and the underground, the rules beneath that, and how we're making those decisions, then it's got to go back to that whole policy document, and we've got to do a review of that and see how that matches the vision of the board, right? Like I said, the last time we brought that to the board, I asked the question, do we want to redo all of that? And the response in '22 was like, no, we're good, things are fine. I mean, that was the last board, and that was, in the middle of a pandemic and everything else, right? So, I'm not saying the last board made a poor decision, they just made a decision,
Yeah.
right? This board may want to go back to the drawing board and reevaluate it, but that's not a change we can make to immediately start getting.
By September.
Right.
Yeah.
These kinds of tweaks are things we can just put into place immediately. Travis has done the work to see it's comparable to other high schools.
Yeah.
Right? We're not way off base. This isn't something that a community member, like, if all of a sudden we said it was 1,000% for Group C, more than Group, okay, that's crazy, right? And that's the work that I tasked Travis to do this year, so we could make an informed decision in comparison to other area high schools, right?
Somehow I don't remember having this level of detail when we talked about this in 22, though.
No, I
don't
brought you the
think we
question of,
did.
did you want to reevaluate it
No,
at
we
that
didn't.
point? And the group, the board members around the table were like, no, we don't want to look at that right now, right? It wasn't this level of conversation. I did hear from the board last year, as we were talking about goals for this year, was to look at, can we increase the use of our facilities? Yes, we can. This is a way we can
what
do
cost,
that.
though?
Does it make it likely that a community partner will use our space or not? That's a whole different question. Like, if the goal is we want more of our sender programs to be using our facilities, and that's a goal we have, that's a whole different lens than how we looked at this.
Yes. And to your defense, you were working within the constructs of the current policy.
Correct.
Right,
Right.
right.
I mean, so this is a baby step
A
that we
beginning.
could take, that's a rational step, that's a research step that we could take initially, and we can evaluate, is that increasing our facility usage or not, at what rate, at those, what does it do to our revenues, those kinds of things. In parallel to that, we could send this back to the policy committee and say, let's take a look at the whole handbook. Let's take a look at piece by piece what's in there, if it matches. And I would then recommend that the policy committee chop that up into pieces for conversations here with the
Yeah.
entire board.
Right.
Because this is a really complex puzzle
Yeah.
to look at.
Yeah, that was what I was going to suggest, is you need to break it down into different groups and let them chew on one thing at a time.
Well, you see today, just two things, expanding time and changing rates for B and C has been a pretty long conversation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So this will not be easy work to do, and I think the board in 22 recognized that. With everything else we were managing at the time was like, thanks, no thanks, right?
We have
So,
enough on our plates, let's
Yeah.
move on, yeah.
but if we're willing to take this on in the next year, let's, take the next meeting, we'll come back with this. Let's think about what Travis has put on the table here. If the board's comfortable, we can come back at the next meeting and see if you're comfortable taking action on this as like an intermediary step. And then we could do a larger study with, if you think the policy committee is appropriate down, we could send it to the policy committee and start working there as to, do we need to look at this from the ground up?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Straw poll, does that make sense?
I agree. I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just one more thing, I just want to remind the board of when we do more rentals and such, maybe something that came up your last board meeting about energy costs rising. Our lighting, our air conditioning, our heating, all that will also increase. And so that's just a comprehensive look that we're looking at, not just the wear and tear on our facilities, but the energy costs will also go up. So as we're managing our upcoming energy contracts, we want to think about our electric and gas and heating, all the lighting and such that will go into these nighttime rentals for
Yeah.
lighting up the stadium or cooling a gym or heating the gym.
I mean, would be one of my questions is, it's more an issue, I think, in the fall than it is in the spring, just because of the daylight, right? But it seems to me like I drive by at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and our turf fields are still lit up and there's nobody out there. Do we keep the lights on just as a policy at all times, or?
No, but it could have been that something was scheduled there, they started there and went somewhere else. It's hard to say
Okay,
without a
okay.
specific like date and
Yeah.
time.
But, these,
Or if,
these community
The band was
organizations,
practicing there.
when they rent from the park district, if there is lighting, the park district charges for the lighting costs, right? Do we, I would assume we would charge for the lighting cost in addition to the field rental charge, correct?
There is.
Okay,
We don't charge for AC or
yeah.
And just as another quick note, 22-23 rentals, not pool rentals were 139, pool rentals were 54,000, just to give you some numbers to
Oh.
chew on.
That's surprising,
Good.
yeah.
So when we look at this, could we also, does it have to be blanket these numbers across the board? Or can we pick and choose? Like,
You can do whatever you want.
I'm not,
Fully
I'm
in
just,
charge.
I'm not a fan of dropping the Hornets rate by $12 an hour and raising the other one by $6. I guess is what I.
That, I think,
going back to the
feeds
drawing
back
board.
into that policy discussion. And I think we would.
Why would we have to, why would,
Because they
why would?
qualify as Group B.
I know, but why can't we just adjust that Group B? Why does that Group B rate have to go down $12 an hour? That's what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So
Why can't it go down to 49?
it could go to whatever you want.
That's what I'm
but
asking.
We've
Can we go, I
So
mean, do we
walk
have?
through the math there, Travis?
Yeah, so the guide has the percentage that's there. So either we follow the percentage or we don't. So we either have to say it's a certain percentage, right? So right now it's 150%. That 200% is doing that. We don't have to raise the C, but if we say it's at 200%, then B is going to be half of what C is.
But you're asking to just modify the pool rental
Well,
charges.
yeah, does it have to be blanket or can it be?
So if you want to put an asterisk by that and say it's 200% except for the pool, certainly you can do that. You're looking at a specific place and someone else is going to have the same argument for a different facility, a different space. And I don't think that that's right, that this has that and that it's 200% of that, right? So it's very, you pull the lever one and there's a whole others that go to the other extreme.
I guess.
Specifically, Hornets and Express, predecessors many, many years ago, there is a rate that they fall outside of. Hornets and Express don't get charged a standard B and C rental because of the volume of rentals they do.
Oh, they don't?
They do not.
So this doesn't even apply to them?
I guess it could,
Oh,
it may, but right now, because of the volume that they do, both Express and Hornets both get a discounted rate that was determined by somebody well before me.
Well, to that point.
I guess then
feel
we'd like to know what
there's a
they're
lot of
paying.
Complexity to
Yeah.
this, right?
That's
Now
why-
we're gonna
that's
create
why
more
they
and say
only
there's a
pay
special rate over
48.
here. No one remembers why they get locked into this. Just like, I think we should be careful. I mean, not to the point we don't wanna
There
lose
should be
revenue
a
that we're already
guideline.
getting, but like.
There's a ton of complexity.
I guess
and
I
I
want to
think
know what they're
over.
you
paying.
bring up good points. I
What
think
they're
it's,
paying.
Let's,
Hold on.
let's just have one conversation at a
so
time.
you bring
guys.
up good points. I think it's really hard to, I don't think we can do both. Where we're creating funds to be able to have the funds.
Yeah.
And be able to have it open. It's because our wear and tear is going to impact it, and there's a cost associated with that. And if that's the barometer, if you will, man, we got a lot of,
Well, then that would increase the rates to 300 and 400%.
Well, it may, or we just say, look, community.
This is a
We're
community.
opening it up because we feel this is a priority. We recognize that means now every 5 years, 7 years, we're gonna have to
You're
lay
gonna
out
have to pay
capital.
up.
Yeah, so it's just a tit for tat, right? And that's where I think the policy and figuring out where we lie on that spectrum is really important.
Regretfully, I think a lot of the people in the community would say whoever uses it pays.
Well, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I agree with that statement.
But
so yeah, further direction on that, and we'll work on getting the rental income by the space and category, right? That was an ask. Look at A, B, and C, but that's more gonna be
I think
policy.
we're gonna do that in the policy committee.
Policy, right?
Yeah.
What else is needed?
Well, I mean, I guess I was looking at the pool rates as going to the two big tenants, and if that's really not what they're
If you
paying.
want to give me 2 seconds, I
Okay.
can tell you what each are paying if you would like that information.
No,
Yeah.
don't pull it.
I-
We'll
it's
pull it.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
That'd be good to know.
And I do think that we go down a slippery slope, just speaking frankly, when we look at and we say this organization and that organization.
Correct.
Because they're in 5 years from now, they may not be around, and why did we do that?
Yeah.
Like
That's right.
I think we have to stay consistent with whatever that consistency is, whatever that's defined, we need to make sure that
Saying
that's.
they- By the rules as they're written, this is where they qualify and this is their
But
rate.
that's actually not even true.
It is, because they have other things in that agreement
I
that then
guess, but-
change that rate.
I mean, what I'm learning is they're actually not even, that's not their
They're
rate.
not C.
Well, they're C, but that's not their
It's at a
rate.
different,
That's what I'm
it's at a
saying.
It's a
different.
different rate because of the amount of usage.
Yeah,
they
Yeah.
have. So each individual
So-
agreement is gonna follow that set of rules to come up with the total rate at the end, just like if you went to a banquet hall for a wedding, right? It's the same arrangement here, it's all in that guide, we follow through what's there, and out comes a rate, right, for a renter.
So it's not just.
If we don't like how that's
X and Y.
calculating and coming out for groups, that's what the policy committee needs to look at. But as Travis is saying, we shouldn't look at, we like this group.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we should make the rules X for them, and we don't like this. That's not how we can do it. It's, if you qualify under these rules, here's your rate.
Exactly. That's right.
To be clear, it's not like and dislike. It's district and not in district, more or less.
Yes.
Right, but right now it's
Yeah.
more like you're a partner, you're a nonprofit, you're a
Right.
profit,
I
right?
get it.
And that's
This is
really the
profit,
way.
I get the
profit
rules,
breaks down.
but the way that, from where I'm speaking, it's students who are in District 99.
That's
and
not how, if we're going to change it to be that,
Yes.
we definitely
Yes.
can, but that's not the way it is currently.
Yeah.
I
I
didn't
think
realize
that's the way it
it's
should
open
be.
to leave
Just-
anybody.
yeah.
I thought somebody, you had to live in the district.
That's like
to-
saying.
Okay.
Okay, it sounds like this one needs to come back with more
Yeah.
information for our next meeting.
Yes.
Football field.
And we're,
And then you-
you at least get an update as to the work that Travis has done to this point.
Yes.
But it sounds like the board is asking for more, so we will prepare some more for you. If there's additional stuff you would like to see for the next meeting on the 17th, please get it to us by the end of this week, so we have enough time to pull that information together to get it to you by the 17th.
And you want to.
Otherwise, we'll go on what you shared today.
You want to vote on this on the 17th, is that what you're saying?
I
On
don't,
his recommended changes?
I don't want to vote on it on the 17th.
I think for hitting that, whatever window we operate in, we need to, because we can change this at any time. It's not a school year thing, it's more of a rental period window. So that September 1 would be the target, but we have to have it in place because then we're going like right, so like that August meeting. But if we don't do that, my ask then would be wait till that next window,
Which would be December.
which is December 1.
I would,
Then we missed the
I would like to have this in place for the fall for those organizations in the community who want to utilize these facilities. And I'd rather have something in place. And you're going to need this in place before September 1 because these organizations are scheduling their facility rentals
Like now.
now.
Well, the
for
April
fall.
1 is open now for the.
Okay. So I'd be more inclined if we're going to take this
June
baby
1's our
step.
next- Yeah,
If we're going to take this,
sorry.
if we're going to take a baby step like Hank is suggesting, that we probably should vote on this.
either you have to do it June or July, right, Travis?
Yeah, the June window opened up.
June window's opened already for fall.
For
So
fall.
August 1st to October 31st, we've missed that, any application I receive now is going under the current rate structure.
So we're
Okay.
talking about the next window that would be in effect wouldn't be until October.
September 1st
September
would be
1.
the next opening for November 1st through February 29th.
Oh,
Okay.
So we have until September 1st to get this in place.
So maybe we could vote at the July meeting.
I think.
Yeah,
so
let's come back and-
so I'm sorry, your window is already closed through the end of October,
So I
It's already open.
I just
It's
opened
open.
June 1st.
but opened under the
Applications
current
for
rate
rentals
structure.
For August
Okay.
1st through October 31st. So anybody that would like to rent our spaces, let's say weekday rentals now, per policy, I would say we don't rent our athletic facilities outside of pool, which is always our little misnomer. We don't rent our gyms or our turf on weekday nights.
Okay.
We do primarily rent them on either Saturday afternoons after a track meet or a football game, might be done. And then we rent Sunday would be our primary rental space. Our hot market time, as you can imagine, is November through February, which is a September 1st opening date. So that's when the majority of our people are looking for the indoor space. So our cheerleaders want to rent our gyms during weeknights, but we currently say no. Right now, they practice outside. For those flag football teams, they're usually just doing outdoor practices and such.
Okay, so that window will be September 1st.
That
So I'm saying, we have a little bit of time. If you want to discuss a little bit more, we can bring you back this additional information in June. Remember, in July, we only have one meeting, though.
That gives you time to meet with the policy.
I don't think we're gonna,
Your policy committee isn't meeting?
no, we don't have one scheduled, but I don't think we're gonna be able to do the research work that that I'm anticipating
That
that
you
the
need for
policy
the
committee is gonna
policy.
want to be able to make an informed recommendation to the larger, like, this is gonna take some churning.
Yes.
You can see, we're talking about two things right now, and how much time we've spent working through that. And that's with Travis have done the research before tonight, right? So, this is going to
We knew
be
this was a can of
probably a
worms.
project for the entire next school year to, if we're
Really
gonna tear
get it
this
done.
down to the ground up and look at what our vision is of how our facility usage is, like, that's gonna be step number one. And then we have to start going back through the whole process and reevaluate it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay to move?
So we'll come back with answers to any questions you have at the next meeting on June 17th. And then the July boarding, meeting, which is July, someday in July, we'll be looking for the board to take action on this recommendation or not.
Okay.
At that point, or however we tweak it between now and then. But for rental rates and availability beginning on the September 1st window of time that opens, would be that timeframe and recommendation.
July 15th. That's
July
it.
15th. Thank you, Carol. All right? All right. Travis has got one more if you're ready.
This might be equally as long.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
All right, advertising. So, again, kind of following that same format, steps that we've taken. So, we've worked through, and I believe you've seen versions of this. We've worked with digital scoreboards who we have, are providing, building our scoreboards, and we weave that into our contract with them to get assistance with the creation of our program in and of itself. We've gone through multiple different drafts and reviewed it internally, and I think we're in a pretty good spot for the work that we've done. Obviously, then also reviewed 16 different policies. 2 needed to be reworked. We brought those forward at the last meeting, right? And we discussed that at the policy committee. That's in 5140, solicitations by or from staff, and then 825, which is advertising and distributing materials in schools provided by non-school related entities. We've also had a committee that met, has a wide range of different roles, from building level ADs to our finance to communications to operations, in looking at and saying, okay, we reviewed the working document, and what does that look like? What piece is it? What's the readability? All of those different things. We've also done some training with ScoreVision, is the software that runs our programs, if you will, the advertising, the scores, all of the different pieces that will be on our scoreboards. So we did the initial training with them, which included individuals in the building, and learned about like the who and the what and the when of our upcoming things that we need to make sure that we're in place. We need to schedule the next 2 trainings, which will be in scope. I went ahead and scheduled the second one, just myself and the individual. We can do as many trainings as we want, but in preparation for this meeting, I wanted to see, okay, what are the pieces? What does it look like, the actual running of the scoreboard with the different advertising structures that are in place? The individual that provided that training, she said, I shared our advertising packages ahead of time, and she said this is the best one that she's seen in a long time. So the work that we've been able to do with digital scoreboards and internally, she said we're in a really good spot with that. So looking specifically at the policy 825, you guys have seen this language. I just want to make sure as a reminder that these are the things that we talked about at the policy committee, and then again, these are the things that are in as suggested language for so that we can have advertisements and have a litmus test, if you will, when we're looking at the actual advertisements themselves. Were there any questions about any of those pieces in 825?
Actually, I had a few questions.
Yeah.
So I was just reading it over, comparing it to the earlier, so your current version, so I just had just a few questions. So,
Yep.
okay, like illegal, on the right page, illegal actions.
You're in the right one.
So my question was, is that things that are illegal for minors, or is that just like, do we need to,
Oh, illegal actions? Got
yeah,
it.
like, is it?
I think illegal actions would be illegal, so our audience is gonna, who's our audience? So when you're talking about illegal actions, and you said like with the range of the students, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, like I read something in here before that this was gonna be student-focused, right? So I just was wondering, is that, because there are more things that are illegal for minors, so it just was a question.
Yep.
And then
That would be the lens that we would look through.
Okay, and then I saw like smoking on here, and again, this is like, do we wanna call out vaping, is that fall under the same?
It would fall under the same.
It's under smoking, okay.
I'm the one that would be making the call on this.
Okay.
Right, because me and the team here would be making the call. So just the lens we're looking through is, it's a school setting.
Yep.
Students, families are going to be present, and we're going to take a more conservative view on all of these than, our goal is that it's not causing a disruption
Yep.
by us allowing this ad to run. And that's the key piece where you see up there. In one of them, like, will not cause, it might be on the next page, right? Disrupt the educational environment, classroom, schools, or campuses, or interfere with existing programs or services. To me, all of that stuff up above that is outlining things that could do that, right?
Yeah, I was just trying to be
So,
specific,
yeah.
like, I thought, yes, I know initially you or your designee is gonna be reviewing everything, but I was like, as clear as we can be, like, what's in and what's out, I think would be helpful. Like, another thing, I was thinking about video games, social media. Do we want it, like, are we gonna allow ads? I don't know, do we wanna be specific about things we know we're trying to combat in the school? I didn't know.
Well, if there's things you'd like to add, this would be the time, and we can just do a quick straw poll. It's open as policy right now, and we could adapt that before we bring it back
I'm
for
just
second
thinking
reading.
your role, and is this gonna become like a full-time job for you to like evaluate these and then have to answer questions, like, and I'm not saying I wanna like constrain us to be super specific, but I'll be
In
honest,
other
I just read.
districts, in the last district I was in, we had a similar policy to
okay.
this. And it kind of is or it isn't, like, you know it
Okay.
when you see it generally.
Okay.
Like, and if you're like looking at it, you're like, I don't know, I don't know is no,
Okay.
right? When you're looking at
Okay.
something like this. And it does provide the possibility where if we reject something and somebody thinks that we've been over-aggressive in rejecting it, there's a process for it to come back to the board for
Okay.
discussion.
Okay.
And the other way is if somebody raises something like, oh, wow, that was concerning, I wish that I wouldn't have seen that on a scoreboard, it
Okay.
could come back as
Okay.
well, right? So there's a process.
feel like we're
for-
covered?
I feel like we're covered.
Okay, okay, those were sort of my,
And I think this is similar to language to other districts that
Okay.
have this as
Okay.
well.
When the policy committee talked about this exact topic, Kara, we were comfortable giving that discretion to
Okay.
the superintendent.
Okay.
And not trying to have just this all-encompassing list of ins and outs.
Yays and nays.
Okay.
But giving him a little bit more leeway,
Okay.
if you will, to make the call.
Do you think smoking and vaping should be broken out separately? Because I know, Scott, when we were looking at the results of student participation, if you will, there was a decrease in smoking within the schools, but a big increase in vaping. So they're being called out separately, or is that,
Makes no difference to me is making this decision, but if you'd prefer that it says smoking/vaping, we can easily make that change.
Okay.
Because I'm hearing from at least two board members that feel like that.
I'm just
I
trying, I
think-
don't want this to become a full-time job for you. Like, my only thought was, how do we make this as straightforward? But if you, so I mean, vaping came to mind too, but I guess we can modify as we go. But I was just thinking, how do we go out of the gate, I think with, to your point, like a
I
very
don't think you're allowed to
conservative-
advertise smoking.
No.
It's illegal.
No, and the other part on the end of that, sorry, I gotta
Period.
go back, or reflect any behaviors that contradict board policies or rules, right? We already have all throughout our policies and rules,
Okay.
things about vaping and all of
Okay,
that.
fair.
I think the challenge gets, when you get more granular, it gets harder to implement.
And Hank's not going to approve a vaping ad.
I don't think so.
No, I am not.
We just settled with Jewel, didn't we? Like,
Yeah, I think that's.
No, not yet.
not yet? Oh, check didn't come yet?
Oh, with Jewel, we did.
Yeah.
With Jewel. Yeah, we're still getting checks. from
Oh, okay.
Anything else on the suggested policy language?
What about tattoo parlors?
Depends on what the app looks like.
What was the question?
So then we have the use of funds for this, which I know you guys are aware, and this is included in the advertising program, but it's important to note that that's our strategic plan, is to fund ongoing classroom renovations with the revenue that comes in. From the work that has been done, and we're kind of confirming that now, that it's about $60,000 per classroom renovation. So when we look at our revenue and trying to figure out what does that look like, how can we do those things, and that is that's a dollar figure that we're keeping in mind as we're looking at how many classrooms could we do in a year, right? And looking
How many
at the
do we
use of
need
the
to do?
funds.
Depends how fast you want to turn it
How
on.
fast do you want to turn it out? Yeah, because we have.
I mean, do we need 100?
Oh, that we have left to do?
Yeah.
About 200.
200? Okay. So we're talking,
It's a good
what
chunk.
is it, 120?
Could you do 10 a year? By the time the next referendum comes around, you're back to square one.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I'm.
Yeah, no,
Just-
that's, yeah. It's just, but, we're constant, and it depends on, do you want the full $60,000 package for every room, which is floors,
Correct.
electrical, walls, and furniture? Or are we talking about, furniture's okay, but let's do the rest, or lights are okay? It depends on what each room
Yeah, but,
wants.
some classrooms need more facilities, like science labs and all that kind of stuff.
We're talking about just general classrooms.
More,
Yeah. Yeah.
like an English classroom.
Yeah, 60,000 is an average classroom, not a lab setting or anything like that.
Okay, all right, sorry.
No,
Didn't mean to.
So for all, the ads will be played at all sporting events for all of the packages that are not the à la carte, right? So the à la carte ones are for specific venues, and that has a limitation on what is played, but there is at all of our sporting events. So if a package is purchased, it is across all venues, both indoor and outdoor. So it's important that we understand what that is.
So if I'm Soccer 2000 on Ogden Avenue and I want to advertise only at the girls and boys soccer games, is that an à la carte? Is that what you're saying?
It's, the à la carte would be that you could choose Carson's Field, but it would still play at all of the outdoor events at Carson's Field.
Okay.
So the venue is what you would pick.
Okay.
Okay? So the type and timing of ads, I'm going to kind of go through these a little bit quicker, but I will share these, but also say we're working with ScoreVision to make sure that these are the exact same ones that are in our program that we've shared with you that are available, and there are some differences with indoor and outdoor. So I'm going to talk about, they can either be static, which is an image, right, or a video. So this type that's called a brand wrapper is something that is a static, and that plays, you can see it's played or shown during the game. And things rotate through. If there's multiple brand wrappers, you can set the timing for how long it takes, and it will rotate through all of those ads that have a brand wrapper.
So, let's say we're watching a football game here at South High, and there's a volleyball game going on inside. will it kind of come through and say, oh, South's volleyball team is winning, 6-3 or whatever?
There could be, it would be a manual,
Is
like,
that a
update.
brand wrapper? No.
It would be, this would be
No.
for,
This would be like car dealership.
Yeah, Portillo's.
Yeah, restaurant. Yeah.
I'm
Their
sorry, I'm
advertisement
looking at
wrapping
home and away,
No, that's what's
It's the
wrapped
scoreboard.
around the
It's
score.
wrapped
It's the
around the
yellow.
score.
Just
Oh, in the yellow. Oh,
It's kind of like
I'm sorry, I don't mean to be.
Okay, now that you're oriented, that's good.
I'm just trying to think
Yeah,
about.
look at the yellow.
Yeah,
I think it's like if you go to a White Sox game or whatever, and you have the
Yep.
the advertising just flowing through. It
See,
doesn't interfere with the
I don't
with the scoring.
Yep.
You'll go to games.
Yeah, so that is the score as the game's going on, as the clock's running down, we're in a different court, right? That brand
So
wrapper.
it says like Joe's Heating and Air Conditioning, and the phone number.
Their phone
Yes.
number,
Their
their
addre-
website or whatever.
Yeah,
Or their
yeah.
QR code.
And
or
that
whatever
goes,
is gonna
Yes.
okay,
Yep.
all right, I'm sorry, I
Oh, you're okay.
misunderstood, I was
be. Oh,
just
it's okay. That's why we're
trying to
here.
get an idea.
The next kind is it's called a rotating cinema ad, and you can see down there at the bottom, it says halftime, right? So this isn't played while the competition is going on. This can be static or video, and it's played during pregame, timeouts, and halftime. So that's the kind of that package that goes through. So it's going to take up a lot of the screen. It's kind of that right there. This is all of the information with that.
Cool.
There's a panorama, so you'll see at the bottom there, that's where that would show up. Again, that is a static, or it can be a video, and that is during, again, as the game is going on and what that looks like. There's a rotating signature ad, so you'll see that's right in the center. In my understanding, she was double checking on this. The panorama that we just went through is indoor and outdoor, the way that the structure is. The signature is just for outdoor. And again, that's the same thing as that panorama, where it can be both static, or it can be video, and it runs while the game is going on. Then we have rotating brands, so there's a brand ad 1 and a brand ad 2. So to get into the weeds a little bit, she said you can, like, say you can sell one brand for more than another. People tend to look at the home score more than they look at the away score, and they said you can get as intricate with this thing as you want, and there's research to prove that that's where people look more. We're not at that level at this point in time, I will tell you. But that was a very interesting thing to me of like,
Well,
wow, I
or
didn't even think
you
about
want to
that.
make sure that you get them so somebody could add double.
Yeah, so they would, so the brand, the brand ad 1 would be a stack of them, right? And brand ad 2 is a different stack, but there might be where they go across both, and you'll see that in the next thing. So then the last type is in-game animation, and again, you can see it's a halftime, it's taking up the whole thing, so that's again during or after key plays during the game, or at halftime, those types of things. So that can be something where you're highlighting. It's really cool. Like so, this is not all ads. We can do this with our content too, right? So we're highlighting an athlete that's a top scorer right now in the game, right? And it keeps the stats, and you push a button and it will show up. And if we have their picture, it'll show their picture, and go through and give that in-game animation.
So if I'm watching the game and I got my phone and I see the touchdown, can I send it to the booth and then they can play it?
Mm-hmm.
So you can say, we got a
You
touchdown.
can. There's a fan app that you can, you have to download it. There has to be, then whatever you take, it will, you click send, and it will go up. It clips it to a 10-second. There's someone that would preview it, and then it can play. So yes, there is that capability. That's
Or you
in
could
there.
assign somebody on the.
Correct.
On the sideline to do that for our team.
Correct.
But this ad is, if I come to you and I say, every time Downers Grove South scores a touchdown,
I want
might
this
add
ad
the
to go
run
on.
On the touchdown, after the touchdown.
So the different, yes, and so the different packages are broken out that way. So you'll see what we were talking about, that cinema ad. There's different cinema ads. So the title sponsorship gets everything. And the brand one ad is specifically because that's on the home side is the way that is broken down. The numbers at the top are, we won't exceed 8 packages of title, 10 champion, 15 premier, and 25 elite. So that allows, so that there's not oversaturation of the different ads that are running at any one time. You can see the championship or the champion sponsorship. Again, there's 6 of those that are at play, but not all of them are at play, and it dwindles down as you move across the different sponsorships.
What I didn't understand, I realized what the numbers were across the top.
Yep.
What I couldn't understand, because I don't know how many ads come across when I'm at a game, is that per game or is that for the year?
That number is, we would have in a year, we would have a maximum of 8 title sponsorships. Yep.
Oh.
And that's district-wide.
Correct.
It's not south or north.
Correct. And it's all 4 scoreboards.
Okay.
Right? So everything on this page is all 4 scoreboards, and at all of our sporting events.
Wait, why are you saying 8 title per year when there are more than 8?
It's not the number, it's 8 companies that
that
we'll
can
work
be in
with.
that.
8
Oh,
advertisers.
Got it, okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
so if Joe Rizzo Ford
Got it.
buys one and
That's one, and we have
gets
7 left.
all of them.
Okay.
Okay, so that's just to kind of orient you to kind of the packages, how that is structured. This is the pricing, and again, this is the work that we've done with digital scoreboards and looking at they've looked at our community and what they think would work in ours. So all of those 4 that we just went through, title, champion, premier, and elite, is a 3-year term. So there's a yearly cost, and then the bottom 4 are those a la carte things, and they are 1 year at a time. And that is strictly a brand ad. So if you remember, those brand ads were at the bottom. It's nothing else. It's not the in-game animations. It's not the big full. It is during the game on a side. It will rotate through in the cycle.
Now, are we also giving, I'm not going to say packages, but something to our, let's say, the theater group at North or South? They can advertise the fall play is, Cinderella.
Yep.
And so
That's all separate from this.
those are going to be free, I would assume.
Yes.
Those are going to be free, and they would probably be the smaller ads.
Well, it can be the full.
Because,
It might be the full, it
It can be
just
the full. It
depends
can
on
be a
the
video.
event. Yeah.
So how they recommend that you break it out is about 80% of this
this?
and 20% of your school content.
Okay.
It's getting that, because you have to create it, right? You have to go through, whereas when we're working with our advertisers, they're providing us with the static image or the video, and we're playing that.
and because we want them to know that they're going to be running in the state cross-country meet,
Yeah.
on Saturday. So, that'll,
Well, I'm sure, I'm sure you guys did your homework on this, but I was just wondering, is a 3-year term with how volatile the businesses are today, like brick and mortar, is that really aggressive? Are we finding that a person would want to sign up for 3 years and maybe that's the right fit? The next thing I ask about that then is if there's a way you sign up for a 3-year and you're like, well, I'm closing the business next year, to back out of this contractual agreement.
And that would be something where we would need to make sure that's in the actual contract itself. And I don't remember, it's the last page of the document, and I don't believe that it says,
That's okay.
It doesn't have anything in there that if something happens during that time period, if your business dissolves, right, or that's something that we can look at adding.
They're all a contract between the board and that entity, though. You would have the ability as a board to choose to let somebody out of a contract if you wanted to.
I think that's great, but it may be okay to have some contractual language, so, again, this is in addition to the business of schooling, that we don't spend a lot of time trying to
Yeah,
deal with these.
that's why we're using, this company's recommendation for how we do this.
How the length.
Okay.
And do they pay yearly? So
Yes.
if 3 years, then it's what, 17 or 18,000 a year?
Yeah, the way that we have it is that it's on or before October 1st every year.
Every year, okay.
So it's not a lump sum for the three, it's on an annual basis.
We shared that somewhere.
Yep.
What about booster clubs? Are we giving them a break?
They don't pay, right?
We haven't had those conversations.
Those conversations, yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there, because
We haven't had
they're
those conversations.
they're gonna have events, or what is it, the
We've
split the
just been
pot?
focused on the full tier sponsorships
Yeah,
at this point.
split the pot kind of thing, this is what.
50/50 and-
Yeah, the amount of the, split the pot is X, Y, Z.
Travis, if you sell out, what does that look like on an annual revenue basis then?
Oh gosh, so what do we have, 8? So 8 would be on an annual 400,000, then we'd have 300,000, so that's 700,000, then we'd have another 30,000, and then 25,000
That's pretty good.
would be if all of those were at place. So, what did we say, 700? 1.25 million, if that was all in.
That'd be a nice little revenue source.
That would be a fantastic. No, that would be an annual.
Per year.
That would be the annual.
It would be an annual if all
All by one, okay.
if all of them were sold.
That's pretty nice.
And what was the cost of the scoreboards again, roughly?
Roughly with install and everything was I'm trying to pull. I think we were at about a million.
Each.
Or each school, not,
Yes.
So 2 million total?
About 2 million.
For district-wide?
I believe so.
When we looked at it, what the scoreboard company told us was that if we maximize our sponsorship, it's a 2.5-year payback
Yeah.
on the investment.
That's great.
So that kind of checks out with the package that they brought us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Would that also go back to your suggestion that it would also go towards the fields?
It was not my suggestion.
Well, back when we were talking about.
Well, the plan is it all goes towards facilities, starting with classrooms, because that's our first set of needs that we have that have not been budgeted for through referendum or other borrowing pieces, like the fields, the tracks. We've all done that either through capital improvements or through other borrowing options. We did about 1/3 of our classrooms through the referendum with a plan that we would come to the board with a long-term plan for classroom improvements. This is that long-term plan. Now, if all of a sudden we sell out, we're able to redo all of our classrooms in like 4 years or 3 years or 2, well, then what other facility improvements do we want to look at? That'd be a great problem to have.
Right, because I'm thinking, if these scoreboards pay for themselves, what about putting them at the baseball fields? You've got girls and boys, and,
Right, those are other options down
any
the
other
road, yep.
turfs that we may want to do, because we know turfs can be used 24/7, no matter what the weather, where our fields
I like the way you think, Terry. Let's hope we get,
Can go south.
over $1 million a year in advertising revenue, and then we could have those conversations.
Right, but you know what I'm
Yeah, absolutely.
getting at, is that it can progress.
So then the other piece that we have in there is the real-world experience, real-world applications, right? This is the ultimate plan, right? Where we're weaving it in. We're going to be ready to go for the fall. We're not going to be at this whole level, right? But that is the ultimate plan, is that we're weaving it in. This is it's a career. Like there's I was at a Major League Baseball game just recently, and I was like, wow, there it is, right? You see it all over, and it's pretty cool.
So where
the
do you
different
start
things
it then?
can
Do you start it like in the theater, the tech, like where does it start, like next year?
For next year,
Yeah.
we're working on creating those and seeing if there's interest. We're gonna have to go to the buildings and say, where do you think that
Where do you
this
want it to
best
start?
fits with the building structure that you have? There may be a club, there may be something that's already in place that would naturally
And it
flow
might be
into.
different at each school?
Yes, yep.
I can see a class even.
Year one, the goal is just making sure that we get the ads and they run, right? That's year one, is making sure that we
Well,
deliver on what we promised.
You know,
and
you
then
can
You
also
grow
get.
it from there.
You can also get students to create the ads for the
absolutely.
companies. And, you know, that goes into the art direction and, you know,
Graphic design.
That's all, you know,
Inclusive.
that's a great class for kids.
So I know the other images had, and this is just the question screen, but this is, again, like the banner that's across the top. We have the brand ads that are in the corners, right? And then the signature ad is in the middle. That would be a video that would be played. Again, that's our stuff saying, hey, we scored a touchdown, right? If there was if a company had that, we could have our logos and then have that scroll through. So the potential is really limitless in how we utilize, but we're going to be ready to go for making sure we have the ads up and running and get some of our graphics for our schools as well, right? We don't, it's not going to be all ads to begin. We're going to make sure that we have school-related content in there as well. So, questions about anything that was presented?
This is very exciting, very exciting.
Do you envision like a teacher who mans the scoreboard during games to do the ad placements and videos and?
So that's why I wanted to have that other training that was in place. It is very straightforward. It's drop, as long as they're formatted correctly, you're dropping them in, and all of that stuff with the ads and the brands and all of those things are automated. They run. So the in-game production, there's some of it, like to play, if you have an event, you hit a button and then it will run that cinema ad, right? It will go through. So you're not pulling a bunch of different things with the producer and going up and down. It's literally it's on an iPad. And it runs, and it's from the cloud and going through that. So yes, we'll have to have someone that is running that specifically. A lot of that can be done as well from when you're keeping time, doing the score, doing all that stuff. It's
So the
right there.
announcer who's doing the score could also do this?
Yes.
Is what you're saying?
Yep.
This stuff runs in the background, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And then the stuff in the middle, that's whoever's managing who would have been managing your scoreboard before.
Okay.
Now you add one more thing to it, which is like touchdown.
Right,
Show
you hit
that
that.
animation.
You hit that.
Yeah.
And so when you go to a timeout, again, there's a couple buttons you push, and it runs that sequence during the timeouts, right? So it's very much the beforehand setup that really is an important part.
So for the first year, how do we go about recruiting advertisers or potential advertisers, and at what point do we start that recruitment?
As soon as we get this approved, we're going to start beating on doors and getting the word out using our communications channels. But we need to have this program in place so that we can hand those out and get it going.
Back to the, let's say you've got 8 of the elite or whatever.
Yep.
How many times is my ad going to show up on a given night?
So that's up to us in the setup. So we'll get those specific things set up, and then we'll be able to answer those
So
questions.
if you
But
have
there's,
all 8, are you going to have time to do it 4 times? You know what I'm saying? Because you've got all the other stuff to put in there too.
yeah, but notice that these other ones, just going back real quick to this,
Yeah.
like the Elite, that's the panorama ad and the brand ad, those are running throughout the game. Right? The Premier, same thing, panorama, signature, brand, those are running throughout the game. Nothing during half times or timeouts or anything along those lines.
So I'm
They're
going to get
flipping
at
every
least
about
10 probably ads.
It depends
coming
upon
up.
how many we have, right? But they run about every, I think if I remember correctly, about every 6 seconds is the recommended that it rotates through. But you have the brand ad 1, you have the brand ad 2, right? So they're different pools you're running through. So there's specific places that it's showing. And again, for that set time. That's why you have a lot less in the title, because you're getting more content.
Well, it's a bigger content, it's a bigger screen, let's say. So that's why I was going to say, how many times, if you've got 8 people or
Right.
companies doing that, are you going to get 2 or 3 or 4 views?
Yeah.
During
Well,
the game.
not only are you going to get the bigger ones, but then you're also in that rotation with the other ones on the static, the things that are just running through the brand ads and the signature and the.
Oh, that's right,
panorama.
yeah, because they get those too.
When you look at, and I think you guys saw this, but we look at the number of tickets that we've sold, across all 4 venues, there's 5.9 million impressions that can happen across all of our different things. Now, there's some things that are outside of our control. How many timeouts are going to be called? It depends on the game, right? So that's not we can't say we can promise that you'll have this number, but we can for the stuff that rotates through while the game is going. We know what that looks like. But some of those
Still
other
don't know
ones we
how long a
don't.
game's going to last,
Right.
right?
Is it going to go to
So-
overtime? Is it?
Yeah.
And I think,
Well,
I think cats naturally have a set amount of time anyway. There is already canned recommendations how long anyway, so it's.
So you're going to get at least an hour and a half, the length of the game. And if it goes over that, it's extra, but that's
Yep.
what you're going to get is time-wise.
And what we can share, because we're not going to know when we're answering those questions, we're not going to know how many title sponsors we're going to have, how many champion, those different things. What we can say is that these were ads rotate through every, if it's 6 seconds that we set it. We can also say that during, again, half times, timeouts, these ads will run.
And you've got 20 minutes of pregame time. You have that,
Yes.
that, so
Yep.
you can,
And halftime. Yep.
you
For
know
sure.
what you're going to get there.
Are you asking us to not vote on this tonight, correct?
No.
This is the first discussion of the topic.
Okay.
So how quickly can we vote on this?
We would
'Cause I
do-
think it's very important if we're going to get advertising
To go.
recruiting for the fall to get this done as soon as possible.
We'd like to, on June 17th, bring it back for action.
Okay.
Yeah, because everybody's getting tired.
So come prepared June 17th if you have any major concerns or recommended changes here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the handoff.
All right. Next one is mine. This is broken into 2 parts. First part is tonight. Next part is, well, it's multiple parts. Next part is our next board meeting I'm going to give you 2 indicators and measures tonight. I'm going to give you 2 on June 17th. Then we'll have from there until July 15th, we decided, for questions, feedback, whatever. I'll bring you the next version of that on July 15th, and then our August board workshop will have an action item to approve this, whatever version that is, going into the next school year. So we start the school year knowing what those things are going to be. Okay? Reminder, these are the indicators and measures, the measurables, the metrics that we'll be looking at. We've spent the last year designing what we believe these things should be. Some of these are numbers that we already pull. Some of these are things we're going to need to work on building procedures for throughout next school year to then start with a baseline and those kinds of things. I brought you two tonight. The first is growth of student ownership and agency. These are metrics that resemble things that you've seen before in other measures that we've shared over the course of the years. That's why I picked this one as the first one that you look at. So the first one is related to attendance. It closely tracks to the idea of chronic absenteeism, which we've been talking about. Looks at it by semester for that year and in comparison to the last 5-year trend. And we ensure that any student that's not in regular attendance by that criteria is being supported through an attendance intervention monitoring through the discipline dean's department and the administration. So we would come back here in September and give you what we've given you before, which is pretty much, here's what chronic absenteeism looked like for the past school year, here's what it looked like for the 5-year trend, here's what we're doing this year to improve that. And that one we would bring to you after each semester moving forward. Questions on that one? Next one is data you've also seen, which in some format or another, but is really looking at students that have a C or better versus those that don't. Also looking at students with a single D and F in comparison to those with multiple Ds or Fs, to see the factor that you're looking at. And then we will be reporting to you on ensuring that every student that meets the criteria of not getting a C or better, of what interventions, things like what you heard about tonight, that we have provided some kind of support for every student that falls into one of those categories. We'd come to you with a baseline in September of where we ended up for this past year. And then each semester, we'd come to you with, here's what the numbers look like. Questions on that one? Last one connects very closely to the presentation you heard this evening, which is student intervention and support. Students that we've identified that need additional support, are they accessing that? This is not a metric we've ever counted before. We do count interventions in a variety of different ways, as Scott talked about in our student information system, but it's making sure that a student being identified as needing support has access to that. How we're going to track that, code it, and count it. Our work that monitoring team you see there at the bottom, those are the folks you heard from tonight, we'll have to evaluate and figure out how we're going to do that. We will come to you in January with a plan for how that metric will be evaluated and accounted for in the remainder of that year and for future years. So these are, you can kind of start to see for around this strategic domain, we have 3 of these indicators. We have what we're going to do for counting up who is met, what we're going to do to respond to those that have not, right? So that 100% of our students we're keeping track of, right? Nobody's really falling through the cracks with these. Questions on any of these 3?
Just a question on that one, kind of thinking around the chronic absentee, can you totally control that? Are there going to be students that need intervention that we're going to say, here are your options, and they're not going to take advantage? So
that's why we're counting it the way we are, right? We're not saying 100% of our kids will, or that none of our kids will be chronically absent. What we're telling you is that all of our kids will be accounted for.
Right.
right? We're going to try to reduce the number of
Yep.
kids that are chronically absent. But if you are chronically absent, we know about it and we've intervened, right? That we can control.
Okay.
Now, I can't tell you that if we intervene with a kid and, you know,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
that they're magically going to be,
Here.
yeah, in
Okay.
regular attendance. But what I'm working with our team is coming up with metrics to make sure nobody falls through the cracks. right?
Yeah, and sorry, I was just
Everybody's
using
accounted
chronic
for.
absentee as the example for this third one. Like, is that the same kind of issue, right? Like, we
We
present
identified
options.
it that they
Right,
needed
you needed
support,
something,
and
we
we
told you it was
responded.
available, and
Right.
you may or may not have taken advantage. Okay, just so I understand, okay.
Yep. So that's, you know, you'll see these from a lot of school districts that'll be like, X percent of what will be there, and they bring you and they say, okay, we're above the X percent, great, but what about the other percent that fell through the crack? Well, we're not gonna talk about them,
Got
we're
it,
just gonna work
okay.
to get more of a percent next year. What we wanted as a team to bring you is that
Yep.
both sides are represented, right? Those that are meeting our expectations and those that we are supporting. All right, any others on this one? The next one I'm going to turn over to Rob, because this is really his domain.
Thanks. So this one is all about recruitment, retention, and support of our teachers and our staff. As Hank has been explaining this meeting and the previous meeting, this whole activity is about finding the measures that give us the most opportunity for building strategy around. So you'll see on here, we don't have some of the traditional measures that you would see, like a retention rate or something like that, because we have a 96% retention rate. So there's very little opportunity that measure can give us to really build strategies around. So we had some great conversations about what are we doing or what could we do that could help with the recruitment, retention, and the support. And the first one that we landed on is work that we're already doing. It's our work around morale. It's us being intentional and using a scientific method about the environment in which people work. That helps incredibly with the retention. That also helps with people telling their peers, this is a really great place to work. And it also supports. So we feel that continuing in that and building that into this process helps us with all three of those. You can see that we already started it this year. The framework that we use from this firm that we're partnered with has 6 categories that helps us to really narrow in on what morale means and where we can improve. Of those 6, our administration of the survey in the fall indicated that 2 of them we're already doing pretty good on. So that was our recognition and value and our personal safety and belonging. The one that emerged this year that we're building strategy around is the category of ownership and input. So the staff really wants to have more voice in the direction, and they also want to feel more that they're contributing to the success in some of these measures that we have. So that's the first one that we have. We're going to administer the survey again sometime next school year, so that way we can see the gains that we've made on ownership and input. And the idea behind this one is that this whole process is a multi-year. So after the 5 years of this, our aim is to have all 6 of those categories at the appropriate rating for us. So ideally, it's going to be iterative. We do ownership and input. We work on that. We build that into our culture. And then another category is going to emerge as the next one that we need to work on.
So.
Yeah, go ahead,
I'm
Cheryl.
sorry.
Yeah.
If you have more, go. I can.
I was just going to move to the PD, but if you have questions on
Go
this.
ahead. I can wait.
Okay, so then the second one is professional development. So the first is the morale and the conditions that people work in, and the second is our investment into their growth and building in a system so that way we can make sure that the professional development is meaningful and relevant to the staff. So that's using exit tickets, a standard one after each PD event, so we can look at it and see where we can improve and make the PD better and better every time for the staff. So the idea behind this is that these are what are called leading indicators instead of lagging. So retention rate is a lagging one. We would wait until the end of the school year to figure out how we did. These are more leading, that we work throughout the year to see how things are going and then keep getting better and better. Yes, Cheryl.
Oh. So you have, what did I see, the exit slip. Is that like an exit interview and you're gonna give them some type of sheet to fill out and you're?
Yeah, it's a real, sorry, exit slip is a teacher term. Basically what it means is it's a mini survey at the end that we're gonna put together that'll help us to figure out, was this good for them, or how can we improve the sessions for next time?
Survey around professional development.
Each professional development.
They'll survey.
Did this meet your professional curiosities? Was this a valuable use of your time? Questions like that that we can apply across all PD opportunities.
So, around the recruitment, retention, and support of quality teachers, each of the metrics, you're gonna ask them if they felt that this met their.
No.
Okay.
So the big category is what can we do about recruitment, retention, and support of our staff? And the two measures that we're putting in place is related to the conditions that they're working in. So one of them is how they feel about their workplace, and the other one is how good of a job are we at adapting the PD to meet their needs. So those two are working hypothesis, is that focusing on those helps us to recruit better because they're telling their peers, you want to come and work at District 99, helps us keep people here because it's a valuable environment for them, and it's helping to support them as they continue to grow. Does that make sense?
Okay.
A question for you.
Yeah.
The 6 morale
Sure.
categories, do we know at this time what all 6 of them are?
We do, yeah. I can read them to you if you want me to.
Or you could tell me later, whatever is convenient for you.
Yeah, so there's 6, the 2 that you see up there is recognition and value. So that is, well, exactly, do we indicate enough to people that we believe they're doing a good job and that they're valuable? Personal safety and belonging is pretty self-explanatory. Then the 4 that are left, one is time and resources. The other one is ownership and input, which is what we're working on this year. The next one is leadership, trust, and values alignment, and then professional growth. So we're actually kind of working towards the professional growth one at the same time that we're working with ownership and input.
Okay.
And this firm has like really good definitions. I can send those to all of you of what they mean by those categories.
Okay, that'd be great if you have time to do that.
The purpose is for us to take this nebulous term of morale and
Right, break
actually
it
get
down.
into a definition of what can we do about it.
Yeah.
So they break it into 6 categories for us.
Great, great.
Are we rated highly in all of them, and then we're just trying to groom, well, not groom, but improve
Yeah.
our
so-
standing in those?
So the way we measure it is, it's about 20 questions on a survey, and those questions align to those 6 different categories, and then we'll analyze those questions. And each question is on a Likert scale, a 5-point scale. So
Okay.
5 is the best, and then 1 is the worst.
Okay.
And so those that are up there, the recognition and value and personal safety and belonging, on average got a score of 4.
Okay.
And then these other ones got an average score of 3. So they're not really bad.
Oh,
They're at a
okay.
3, and our work is to, let's see what we
To
can do
jump
about-
them up
up
to a 4 or a 5.
Correct.
Well, 5 is kind of hard to get, I would think, but you can get a 4.5.
Yeah. The purpose is for us to find what's the next thing to work on, build strategy around it, and see if we've made improvement.
Okay, perfect.
Are you working on a 3rd for this category, or are we going to have 2 for
No,
this
just two,
category?
just
Just
two
2?
for this
Okay.
category. We're between 2 and 3 for each of them. I believe we discussed that as a board when we
Yep.
talked about goal setting earlier in this year to keep it narrow.
Yep.
Right.
Speaking of ownership and input, the work that we did with staff this year, we heard from staff overall, narrow our focus, really make it clear what's important. So through this exercise, we're doubling down on some of these
Yeah.
things.
This whole process is part of our work towards ownership and input.
Right.
Which is,
And you can see how that builds on those too, right? The fact that you're asking people's feedback after every professional development opportunity is a form of ownership and input. right? So all of these things start to build on one another. All right, so here's these two. I'll be back the next time with the last two. And like I said, then between then and the July meeting, any feedback that you have, we're gonna be working on these in the background, right, to get ready for the next school year. If anything like sets off a major red flag to you, let me know about that early. If there's things you're like, I'm gonna just kind of sit back and provide some low-key feedback later on, we can kind of work through that as we go along. But as anything, if there's something that's a big concern to you, let me know about that early. Okay?
Okay, item number 6, the consent agenda. Before the board votes on the consent agenda, is there any agenda item a board member would like to pull out of the consent agenda for further discussion?
Those are the items.
Hearing none.
I
Can I?
have to make an announcement real quick.
Yes.
You'll see in your document, we have the appointment certified. We have a modified one. All that is that one of the candidates who was going to take a part-time special services has found a full-time special services job somewhere else. So that person is now off the report for your approval.
Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
Can I get a motion for the Board of Education to approve the consent agenda as presented, which includes A, personnel report, appointment certified, transfer of position classified, B, personnel report, retirement classified, resignation classified, C, personnel report, termination classified, and D, waive first reading and approval of Board Policy 3.71, Chief Technology Officer.
So moved.
Second.
Terry moves, Ken seconds.
Thank you.
Do I have discussion or question?
Yeah.
Okay, so the action item tonight is separate from these personnel reports?
From the consent agenda?
Correct.
Yes,
Okay. I was,
yes.
I
That's okay.
was certain of that, but I wanted to
Of
be
course.
extra certain, okay?
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Ken Dawson.
Aye.
Chris Espinoza.
Aye.
Sherelle Fuller.
Aye.
Jenny Hagstrom.
Aye.
Kara Caston.
Aye.
And Don Renner.
Aye, motion carries. Julie, do we have any
No, sir.
slips? Okay, so moving on to item number 8. Can I get a motion from the Board of Education to go into closed session for the purpose of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or specific volunteers of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor at a park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of the district, or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity.
So moved.
Second.
Terry moves, and I'll say Chris seconds.
Thank you. Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Chris Espinoza.
I'm sorry.
Sherelle Fuller.
Aye.
Jenny Hagstrom.
Aye.
Kara Caston.
Aye.
Ken Dawson.
Aye.
And Don Renner.
Aye, motion carries. And just for a note for the public, after the board comes out of closed session, the board may take action on a personnel report as noted in the agenda. We are in closed session.
All right, can we take like 5 for a
Sure.
biology break?
Sure.